let us prepare ourselves for the opening prayer to be led by Pauline Bautista, Director, Sacred Springs Dialogue Institute of Spirituality and Sustainability, and member of Green Convergence.
Prayer of Gratitude. Great Creator, here I am, fruit of love in the world. My heart sings a song of gratitude to you. Thank you for the sun, for moon and stars, for beasts and vegetation, for rain and wind. Thank you for friends and fellows. Thanks to you. Each moment of life is joy. Each breath is a blessing. Every effort is rewarded. Great Creator, here we are, fruit of love in the world. Our heart sings a song of gratitude to you. Amen.
Isang makakalikasang pagbati at mainit na pagtanggap sa inyong lahat. Welcome to the longest running environment forum in the Philippines, or maybe in the world. In Netflix lingo, this is season 31, episode 364 of Kamayan para sa Kalikasan Forum, held every third Friday of the month since March 1990. It was started by journalist broadcasters Vic Milan and Ed Aurelio Ding Reyes, my brother, with the goal of greening the media at a time when environmental issues could not gain traction in the highly politicized media. Eventually, after environmental issues began to see print and gain airtime, it evolved into a public forum. In 2012, after the death of Vic Milan and the stroke suffered by Ding Reyes, management of the forum was handed over to Green Convergence for safe food, healthy environment, and sustainable economy. Since then, Kamayan Forum has been organized by Green Convergence and Kamayan Restaurant with support from Forest Foundation Philippines. We are very grateful to our sponsors. We also want to inform you that we are live streaming on Facebook, and we are also recording this session, and it will be uploaded to our Facebook page, Green Convergence Philippines. And now, for her opening remarks, I bring you the President of Green Convergence, Dr. Nina Galang.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending the 364th session of Kamayan para sa Kalikasan Forum. Our moderator who just spoke is Marie Marciano, former Vice President of Green Convergence, and a present board member, Carlo Garcia. Welcome to our special guests and our media friends, and of course the members of Green Convergence and allies and friends. When the pandemic struck, we panicked, and it is an understatement. There were many things we panicked about, of course, one of them being infected. But one big worry was food availability. Stores were closed. Transportation routes from the provinces were closed. People lost their jobs so that they didn't have money to buy food with. People stayed at home so they couldn't go out to buy food. Eventually, of course, we adjusted thanks to the Filipinos' creativity, ingenuity, and generosity of those who have, for those who have less in life. We are now more relaxed. The economy is still down, and so livelihoods are still a problem, but slowly we will get up on our feet again. And the food availability does not seem to be a problem. But then, even before pandemic, pre-pandemic, there were many hungry. And post-pandemic, we are still in a bigger, maybe longer pandemic, which is climate change. How is the food security outlook in this scenario? Is it a matter of income, lack of income, such that people can't buy food? Is it a problem of government policy, which makes food less affordable and less accessible? Or is it a matter of absolute amount? Do we have enough or don't we have enough to feed the 109 million people in our country and counting? This is the topic of today's Kamayan, and maybe a forerunner or pre-look at things to come. And I'd like to thank our esteemed guests who are experts in their fields for coming this afternoon and sharing it with us their knowledge, experience, and insights with regard to this topic. Thank you very much, and let's all have a good session.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Nina. Thank you so much. At this point, I would like to proudly welcome, the Kamayan Forum co-moderator. He is the newly elected Vice President of Green Convergence. He is the Executive Director of Environmental Studies Institute of Miriam College. Please welcome Dr. Carlo Garcia. Carlo?
Hi, Marie. Thank you. It is always a pleasure co-moderating Kamayan with you. Good afternoon, everyone. Like you, I also look forward to another productive learning session today.
Yeah, well, this is as close to the gut as you can get. Our topic today, it's food, and it's one of the three pillars of green convergence. Safe food, safe and accessible food. Okay, because if it's not accessible, then it's not safe. So, okay, we are now going to. I am now going to describe the format of program flow of Kamayan. Usually, we have three parts in the forum, the forum proper. First part is when we listen to our resource speakers. And then the second part is when the participants ask questions. And the third part is when the resource speakers answer the questions. So you see, during the first part, when the resource speakers are talking, there are no questions to be asked. All the questions will be asked in the second part, and they will not be answered immediately. We are going to wait to answer these questions at the third portion. Meantime, the resource speakers are asked to take note of the questions so that they don't forget to answer them during the third portion. But for today, we are making a slight adjustment because we have a resource speaker who has to leave early. And so after the first talk, we are going to accept some questions. We are going to open the floor to a few questions before we continue and get our resource speaker to answer them before he leaves. Okay, I hope that's clear. Carlo, did I say that correctly?
Was very clear.
Okay. So now it's your turn to
Oh,
give the guidelines to participants. Yes.
some reminders actually. To avoid distracting ambient noise, all participants are auto-muted for the duration of the webinar. Shafi, please do that now. Well, of course, during the open forum, when participants are welcome to ask questions or share comments. For the meantime, you may use the chat box for comments, reactions, or messages. Back
Okay,
to
is
you.
that it? Are we done? Okay, so it's time to introduce, to start our first part. And it's time to introduce our first speaker. He is the Executive Vice President of Alianza Agricultura, comprised of 32 federations and organizations from the agricultural and fisheries sector. He is also President of the United Broiler Raisers Association, a nonprofit association of small and medium-scale poultry producers. Let us all welcome Attorney Eliseo Bong Insyong.
Magandang hapon po sa lahat. Elias Jose ako, ma'am. Matuwid ko lang kayo. Hindi po.
Elias?
No limit ang
Sorry.
here, ma'am. Doon ako ipinangalan.
Elias, okay.
Elias. In any case, ma'am, Bong will be fine.
Thank you.
I have a PowerPoint presentation, ma'am. I requested a lady who communicated with me through email if she can assist me.
Yes.
She can flash it now. And while she's flashing it, ma'am, I would like to, for want of a better word, forewarn some of our members of the audience who may not be familiar with me. Through the years as a speaker, sometimes I get feedback, Bong, most of the time we agree with you, but sometimes you are too angry. I have to explain that is not anger. It is just most of the time I'm in a hurry as is in this instance. And also we have lived through and still living through a very distressing time, this time of COVID. I do not want to add to the distress or stress of everyone. If you are of the thinking that what is happening in food and agriculture today and in the past years have been wonderful, let me say at the outset that you are in the wrong forum and you will get upset and you will be stressed. And my suggestion is you should go to the Facebook page of the Department of Agriculture, and you will feel like you are in Enchanted Kingdom or in Disneyland, and you will feel wonderful if you are predisposed to the thinking that what has been happening all these years to Philippine food and agriculture has been great, and in particular, if you think that the present dispensation of the Department of Agriculture is doing well. So you're in the wrong forum if your answer to that is yes, because you will feel a lot of stress. My PowerPoint is on screen already. I hope everybody sees it. Next slide, ma'am. So this is the outline of my presentation. I only have about 9 slides, including the title slide and the thank you slide. Mainly, I use my PowerPoint presentations to guide me rather than to present everything to the listeners or the audience. So I beg your indulgence. So the first part would be purpose and perspective. So you will know my purpose, the purpose of my presentation, and where I'm coming from. Then some, so that we will have some common ground, some definition and pillars. And three, you know where I'm coming from already. Filipinos are food insecure. Why? And then the way forward. Next slide, ma'am. So the purpose of my presentation is to show that even long before COVID, we have been in a very bad place in terms of food security for the following reasons. Our trade policy and the food and agricultural system that we have adopted, not only under this administration, but perhaps for the last 50 years. And presently, I have tried to be as direct as possible. Right now, the problem is the governance in the sector is basically governance by public relations and denial of realities on the ground. I will elaborate on that later. Perspective, I have been in agriculture. I'm a third generation farmer. My grandfather was a peasant in San Juan, Batangas. He knew how to work in coconut plantations, marunong mag-copra, marunong mag-sawali, marunong mag-sapatos ng kabayo. Ganon din yung ama ko, yung tiyo ko. Ang breakthrough generation sa amin yung aking ama. My father was a scholar of, he was valedictorian of his elementary and high school. And he became a scholar of Don Claro M. Recto. And most of those who are like me would have that common history of having a breakthrough generation. But for most of us, and including myself, I am very proud of my roots as a peasant. The perspective, again, I'm into poultry, to broilers in particular, although the way things are going, to be, as a matter of full disclosure, down the line, in the next few years, we will be phasing out our broiler operations. Instead, like all Batangueños, we will stick with cattle and orchards. As an advocate, I am president of the United Broiler Raisers Association, composed mainly of small and medium scale broiler raisers, but we have big players, national players. Then I am executive vice president of Alianza Agricultura. I am co-convener of SINAG, Samahan Industriya sa Agrikultura. I am corporate secretary of the Philippine Chamber of Agriculture and Food Incorporated, and I am part of the Agri-Fisheries Alliance representing Alianza Agricultura. Next slide, please. So, some definitions. Actually, you can Google the definition of food security, and you take a look at Wikipedia, and you will have lines and lines of definitions there. But I chose this one. Food security exists when all people at all times have physical and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food to meet their dietary needs, food preferences for an active and healthy life. 4 pillars. This is how we generally, how the world looks at food security: availability, access, utilization, stability. Some illustrations with local context. Availability. Some products, some commodities, some food items are produced seasonal in nature, like rice. You only, at least in Luzon, you can, and if it's irrigated, you can plant twice a year. If you are rain-fed, you can plant only once a year. It is seasonal. However, you can store it. So therefore, availability would entail not only production, but distribution, storage, and exchange. And availability also, at least in the context of the government for the last 30 years, or probably 40 years, when they say supply, it means production plus importation. This gained momentum. This ideology gained momentum starting in 1995 when we acceded to the WTO. Access. It is, as the definition said, economic access, affordability. And also, the access would also entail whether or not the market is working or not. For agriculture, especially chicken, pork, rice, even fish, there is a disconnect between farm gate prices and retail prices. There's also a disconnect between the volume of importation and consumer prices, retail prices. The problem is because the approach to policy is very ideological. We are into import liberalization. There is a denial of reality. There is always this assumption that because of import liberalization, you will have affordable products. I will elaborate on that later. Utilization. To illustrate, before the advent of fast food chains and all of these snacks and these big malls and groceries and supermarkets, you had the wet market, the palenques. Food was more local. It is sourced locally, and at that time you did not have that much refrigeration or storage, no electricity. So food was more local. But through the years, you had a lengthening of the supply chain, such that because of globalization, your supply chain, some of our fruits are coming from Florida, California. You have olive oil from Sicily, Naples, or the Greek islands. Although it is illegal, you have a century egg from China, that kind of stuff. Then nutrient density, because of the need to increase yield, at least in the mindset of policy makers here and abroad, the emphasis has been on yield. Nawala na yung emphasis on food quality. The tomato of today is not the same as the tomato of yesteryears. The nutrient content would be lower today simply because that is a biological reality. Parang sa tao yan, or parang sa pag maraming anak ng baboy may bansot. Bumababa yung quality nung habang dumadami yung anak, bumababa ang quality, yung overall quality nung litter. Ganon din sa gulay, sa palay. Pag pinararami mo masyado, quality would suffer, nutrient density would suffer. And you would need to eat more to satisfy your requirements. And in a way, our requirements are quote-unquote are artificial because we are bombarded by so much advertisement telling us that we need to eat this one is delicious, this is the fat, this is the in thing, to the detriment of the environment and especially our soils and our waters. And then food safety, because of the long supply chains, we are not really sure. And that, there are good trends and bad trends abroad. There is a trend towards local food, the local food movement in the US and Europe. There is also the trend coming from urbanites in the US that abhor farming. Sometimes they misuse the concern for the environment for advocating for food systems that would, especially for Asians, appear strange. There is now an advocacy in the United States and parts of Europe for laboratory meats or laboratory food, wherein there will be fermentation hubs in communities, and people will line up to that fermentation hubs, which would grow meat from cells, or the other term for it is laboratory meats. And there are serious advocates of this, and its price has gone down from in the last 8 years. Stability. When we talk of stability, you talk at least myself. You talk of resilience. We saw this during this crisis. This actually COVID merely accelerated medium and long-term trends that threaten our resilience or our stability in terms of food and agriculture. We keep on lengthening our supply chains with import liberalization, and at the same time, we keep on undermining our local producers, especially our rice farmers. And again, the doormat for that policy or thinking is it's for the benefit of the consumers. But when you take a look at the data, whether you are a supporter, by the way, whether you are a supporter or a critic of the Rice Tariffication Act, do not use 2018 data. If I have time, I will elaborate because 2018 data will mislead everyone. And that is why I cannot respect the Department of Agriculture, because they keep on using 2018 data when they know it would mislead people. And let us move on. Next slide. Next slide, ma'am. Thank you. Filipinos are food insecure. Why? Our food trade policy is anchored on import liberalization. When we got into the GATT WTO, we adopted this. Although, let me state early on that there are countries which succeeded while being a part of the WTO. At least in terms of food and agriculture. Take a look at Thailand, Malaysia, our peers, China, Australia, of course, and Brazil. They have natural resources there. They have certain advantages. But in our case, our problem is when we got into GATT WTO, supposedly we needed to liberalize to benefit the consumers with lower prices, and it will compel producers to become competitive. Unfortunately, when we got into WTO, we did not complete the design, at least in terms of implementation. The design of the WTO was you liberalize imports in the sense that you provide market access. You remove quantitative restrictions. It did not say that you're supposed to collapse your tariffs in such a way that you destroy your or make your sectors vulnerable to unfair competition. In fact, we are rather famous in the WTO when you talk to Fred Serrano, former Undersecretary Fred Serrano of the DA, and I've talked to certain former Indian officials. They were rather shocked when we submitted our tariffs, our bond rates in the WTO. We were one of the lowest. For some reason, there was some glee among Filipino economists to be the prime example by the Americans and the Europeans of the bold, brave Filipino pioneering economic thinking. that import liberalization or trade liberalization will make us competitive because it will make things cheap. Experience would show that that is not true, but going back to the design, after market access, after removing the your quantitative restrictions and tarifying everything, you're allowed to provide domestic support. Domestic support is a part of the nomenclature of the WTO. It simply means subsidies in terms of policy and resources. It's either direct payments or research and development or in kind, tractors, fertilizers, harvest facilities, roads, ports, all that stuff, and export subsidies. That is why it would be difficult for us in terms of agri to export because we do not provide export subsidies. We do not provide credit lines to our potential customers abroad. And we do not have insurance for our exporters. And of course, the third part of the design would be your trade remedies, anti-dumping, safeguards, and countervailing. I will not go into that. Unfortunately, after 23 or 24 years after WTO, we made the same mistake, specifically on rice, because we passed the Rice Tariffication Act back in February 2019. My view is that the NFA and the rice sector, they were set up in 2018. Rice was being blamed for inflation. But if you take a look at what happened in 2018, the NFA failed to import for the lean months, something it has done since its inception. Number two, inflation was high at that time because oil prices were high. That headline inflation yun eh. When you say headline inflation, you're talking about the food and fuel. And your core inflation at that time, your money supply, ratings agencies, stock analysts were already saying we were about a quarter or so behind the tightening of the money supply. And unfortunately, in the desire to attribute virtues to the rice tariffication law, even before the passage of the law in 2019, February, inflation rate, the price of rice, these things were already going down simply because the central bank tightened money supply, oil prices were going down, and the importation, which was supposed to come in before the rainy season, finally arrived. Secretary Piñol was allowed to import. So it was a setup, as far as I'm concerned. And up to today, the Department of Agriculture is still, when it would refer to prices and trumpet the so-called triumphs of the rice tariffication law, it would refer to 2018 prices. But if you take a look at the data since 2014, retail prices are more or less the same. In fact, probably the prices in 2014 to 2017 would be much better. And palay prices, you know, very slick ang Department of Agriculture. They will give you average palay prices. They will say that the average palay price in 2019 and 2020 is higher. But the problem is using average annual palay price is misleading because yung farmer kasi hawak lang niya yung palay during harvest time. That would be at most a month or so because the farmer, yung magsasaka hanggang maaari, gusto niya maaga pa lang, maging pera na dahil maraming babayaran ng utang eh. Kaya the more relevant price to look at would be during harvest time. And then ngayon, as you see, napakababa. The problem is the Department of Agriculture is in denial. People like Raul Montemayor, they have been branded as a source of fake news. And the Department of Agriculture has been insisting that the price of palay dried is 19 pesos, and the farmer is supposed to be having a wonderful experience right now with a few problems. So, because of our trade policy, consumers and producers ended up as losers, both losers. The main beneficiary would be the big businessmen who are into trading, who are into importation, whether of rice, chicken, pork, fish. That is the enabling environment of government is in favor of importers. Now, there are those who argue, but we have been having growth, an unbroken chain of growth through several quarters through these years. But you know, whether or not you are a rightist or a leftist, you talk to Bernie Villegas or to Sunny Africa of Ibon Foundation, both are Batangueños, they will tell you our safety net all these years our safety nets have been OFW remittances, BPO revenues, and tourism. Our manufacturing and agriculture have been hollowed out, similar to what has happened in the United States. Problem is, I don't know how long OFW remittances will last. Hopefully, it will last for another decade or two. BPO revenues, it is threatened by artificial intelligence, advances in information technology, tourism, COVID. And that is the problem now. Next slide, please. We have a problem with our agricultural system, our food production especially. It favors big players. BOI is fond of granting incentives to big players. There are no incentives for farmers. Also, because we are there is this persistent desire on the part of policymakers for the Philippines to become a food exporter or an agricultural exporter without providing for the necessary subsidies, export subsidies and production subsidies. And what has happened even before the Duterte administration, even before our accession to the WTO, you have a system that benefited mainly multinationals. For those who are Batangueños here and Caviteños, you remember the time when a certain company encouraged Batangueños and Caviteños to plant coffee. And then when coffee prices collapsed, they abandoned those who planted. That is the problem. There is no sense of, we are not developing communities. The most resilient system would be a community-based food system, a system that services communities, that supports communities. And because of these policies, our system is extractive. Our agriculture is like mining. We exploit the land and the seas. We poison it with pesticides. We use seeds which are very expensive and which produce products which are not with low density, with low nutrient density, and which damage our water supply. And you can see this in the recent problem of the Department of Agriculture of explaining their fertilizer bidding, wherein the retail prices are are cheaper than their wholesale purchase. It's another, during another time, it would have been a major scandal, but for some reason, President Duterte immediately asserted that the fertilizer bidding that happened was above board. I disagree with that. So right now, our system is high input, high cost for the farmer, and therefore high risk. The farmer is, through the years, through the generations, the farmer ended up buying all his inputs. Dati-dati yung magsasaka magtatabi ng kanyang binhi. Mais man yan o palay o gulay. Ngayon binibili mula sa mga kumpanya. Unfortunately for us, we are still there. In other countries, they're moving towards a more regenerative and circular system of production, wherein the farmer, as much as possible, will minimize his outside purchases for inputs, and as much as possible, rely on what is on the farm or inside the farm. And in terms of marketing, our system is against producers again because of the disconnect, as I mentioned earlier, between farm gate and retail prices. That is why you hear news, mostly, at least with chicken, mostly coming from Ubra, baksak na yung presyo ng farm gate, hindi pa rin bumababa sa palengke. Mabagal tuloy yung galaw ng the velocity of the goods would be very slow, lalong nahihirapan yung mga nagpo-produce. And that is why the turnover of players in the broiler industry is very fast. It used to be you had about 6 big companies, Filipino. Right now, a lot of players in the industry. You have Cargill, which is an American company. You have CP or Kairon Pokphand of Thailand. You have Yonghap of Malaysia. You have East Hope and New Hope of mainland China. It is not true. In actuality, you know, NEDA and all of these economic managers would accuse people in agriculture of not being competitive or being afraid of competition. Andiyan mga dayo, ang lalaking kumpanya, mga conglomerates, international conglomerates, and they themselves are losing money because of the policies. And some of them will intend to leave or at least suspend expansion plans. And next, I mentioned this before. It is inherent when your policy is import liberalization, you will have long supply chains, and you will be vulnerable to calamities, whether typhoons or COVID, and therefore you will have an unstable system. And of course, again, our policymakers, they have a laid-back view of climate change. Prime example, when they insisted upon the rice tariffication law, the advocates were already pointing out what is happening, because they keep on saying that you know, the Vietnamese, they have natural advantages, they have cheap rice, also the Thais. Why deprive the Filipino consumer of this cheap rice? The problem is you have aside from the disconnect, binubulsa naman ng mga importers yung savings. And also, what I mean by laid back, they refuse to consider that the Mekong River, the Mekong Delta, the character of the Mekong Delta is changing, and the projection is it will not be the same in another 10 to 20 years because of the dams upstream from China, Laos, etc., going back through its source in the Himalayas, and also because of climate change, because of the prolonged dry season, you have saltwater incursion already in the rice lands of the Mekong or the Mekong, up to 15 kilometers. And also the Communist Party of Vietnam, it is already having problems convincing the peasants there who were former Viet Cong of sticking to rice production. A lot of them would want to shift to aquaculture already, precisely because of the saltwater incursion. And however, our policymakers do not consider this a threat. While the whole world is changing its paradigm from we can always import, the whole world now is in a paradigm of preparing just in case, the just in case paradigm, preparing for the worst. Because the projections for the next 15 years by the Bank of America, by a lot of forecasters on technology, the next 15 years, we will see the most changes in human history in terms of technology, social organizations, etc. And also, because, you know, food is food. If you have a problem with food availability, access, etc., you have a national security concern. And that is why we still have an insurgency going back to 1968. And if you include the Hukbalhap insurgency going back to 1948. Next slide, please. Governance, this refers to the present dispensation of the DA. Right now, you have to follow the DA line and genuflect before the altar of Dar. It is like being in the old Soviet Union. For those who still remember the old Soviet Union, especially the Stalinist portion of its history, kailangan doon ka sa linya. Not everything is doing well. Not everything is fine. We're going in the right direction. And if you contradict, you will be branded as a purveyor of fake news. That happened to Raul Montemayor and the advocates for the rice sector. That happened to me and Mr. Sanjego, the chairman of UBRA. I am the president. Unfortunately for the DA, when their people were through mainstream media and through chat groups were discrediting us, that we did not understand the presentation of their Bureau of, because their Bureau of Animal Industry said they cannot stop importation and they cannot do anything about importation regarding our request because there was already and up to today an oversupply of chicken. Why can't you stop importation? They said because of the WTO. However, for other commodities, pwede. Recently, Dar just announced that it intends to stop rice importation. And BAI told us to self-regulate, which we took to mean makibagay ka sa importation. Ikaw ang mag-adjust. Yung mga importers hindi mag-a-adjust sa inyo. Ikaw mag-adjust. And right now, at this point in time, we are down, production is down by, it has contracted by 30 to 40%. And even the US Embassy agrees with our projection. Not that the views of the American Embassy would be indispensable. However, for purposes of explaining to the Department of Agriculture, it is helpful. So, whether it is chicken, rice, or pork, if you point out the problems, immediately, because apparently under this present dispensation, the concern is not to solve the problem. The concern is PR. I do not know the agenda of Secretary Dar, whether he intends to run for public office or he intends to have a great legacy, at least in terms of image. But goddamn, he is not addressing the problem because he refuses to recognize the problem. Pag nagreklamo ka, fake news ka. Kanya lang kami naligtas ni Mr. San Diego. The only reason we were able to protect ourselves, somebody within the Department of Agriculture released the video of that meeting with the Bureau of Animal Industry. And that video supported our allegations in public, our open letters. Na yun ang sinabi sa amin ng BAI. Hindi namin kayang galawin yung imports. It is not even a threat to you. Kayo mag-adjust, self-regulate. That was being denied by Secretary Dar and his media people. It is just fortunate for our sector that there was a video and someone from inside the Department of Agriculture released it. Nakatulong yun sa amin. Now, why is it like this? Bakit ganito ang administration ng Department of Agriculture? Hindi lang under Secretary Dar. Through so many administrations. Because, again, we are not following the design when we got into the WTO. The domestic support portion of the design when we got into the WTO, it's legal incarnate, its legislative incarnate was the ACMA law, the Agri-Fisheries Modernization Act. And Section 13 of that act provides that there should be an agri-fisheries modernization plan which would be formulated and implemented in consultation with the stakeholders, primarily farmers and fisher folks. Unfortunately, administrations, DA administrations in the past, and including this administration, it has not followed that. It has failed to implement the law. There is on file, or there are on file, several plans. According to our lawyer who researched this, there is a plan 2001 to 2007 and 2011 to 2017 and a 2018 to 2023 plan. Unfortunately, wala namang consultations doon. Sila-sila lang dyan sa DA ang nag-uusap. Whatever consultations na nangyari, it's not in the context of planning for an ACMA or an agri-fisheries modernization plan. Under also, this is important, you know, when we got into the WTO, unlike ano kasi tayo gaya-gaya tayo sa mga Amerikano, free enterprise tayo. In Canada, there is the supply management agricultural system. They limit the number of players as in dairy. Here, because of the principle of free enterprise, kahit sino pwedeng pumasok basta may puhunan ka. Hindi mo pwedeng pagbawalan. Kahit na sobra-sobra na yung manok, sobra-sobra na yung palay, baboy, isda. Libre yan. Competition the problem is, it is the key. In the United States, kanya nag-work yan sa ibang jurisdictions. There is an information system. They have an information system. Here, we did not implement sections 38 to 45 of the ACMA law, which mandated that there should be a national information network for agri-fisheries. Kanya yung decisions ng mga investors, ng mga banks, ng mga players, distorted, puro hula-hula. For example, ang classic dyan would be yung when the Board of Investments of the DTI granted incentives to Kairon Pok Fund of Thailand. They took a look at the data, hindi kumonsulta sa DA, hindi kumonsulta sa industry. Akala nila dahil may importation, kulang ang manok. At that time, there was already a glut. Unfortunately, retail prices were not reflecting the glut. So the BOI granted the incentives. Chiron Pork Fund got into the industry and started losing a lot of money for 10 months. Then they applied for membership with Ubra. I was outvoted. Mr. Sanjego was outvoted. They were accepted. I should have resigned right there and there. But, ma'am, next slide, please. Ma'am? Yan. Thank you. Way forward. China, Gopal Agarwala. He used to be the chief economist of, I think, the IMF, sa world, based in Beijing. He wrote a paper, China, Threat or Opportunity. It's a long paper, I think, almost 40 pages, single space. But according to him, the reason why China succeeded, remember China joined WTO late. China did not join in 1995. I think China joined after year 2000 or before year 2000. 5 years after. And yet China is probably the most successful nation under the WTO, such that the Americans are now complaining, led by Trump. It's probably part of the reason Trump got elected into 2016. According to Dr. Agarwala, China, before they implement a so-called reform, especially towards liberalization, they will sequence. And they will try it out in one province or two. Hindi kaagad nationwide. Marunong ang China. They were not ideological. They based everything on what is happening on the ground, not on ideology. Our problem is we are being managed, we are being led by ideologues. Reality has to adjust to the ideology, not the other way around. And that is why I say it is like being in the old Soviet Union. When you disagree with when you're reporting something that is not in accordance with ideology, you are shot. Fortunately here, you are not shot. You're just branded as fake news. So in terms of how do you move forward in terms of food and agricultural system, may I refer you to the website of the Rodale Institute in the United States. They pioneered in organic agriculture. Right now, their foremost advocacy is regenerative agriculture. I am in this journey. When the time comes, my family is already out of the broiler business. I hope our efforts at this type of farming would have ripened. Because regenerative agriculture is not only sustainable, what it's saying is when you farm, it is not only, you should not only not extract like mining, you should not only sustain your present resource base, soil and water, your fundamental resources for agriculture. You should regenerate, you should add to. You should add to. Ma'am, can you pause again the slide, ma'am? Malapit na matapos, do not worry. Ma'am, can you still hear me? Am I still part of the... My goodness.
Maribeth,
We can
please
hear
take
you,
over.
sir. We can hear
Ma'am,
you well.
last slide ko na yan, ma'am.
Maribeth,
In any case, yan na. This is the way to go. The whole world is on this journey already. Even the United States. You know, you have to admire the Americans. Although their mainstream is still into synthetic inputs, fertilizers and pesticides. But because of their history with during the Depression, you know, those who can still remember their history books on the dust bowls during the Great Depression in the United States, they created a service within the Department of Agriculture on soil conservation. And you know, the Americans, they know how to hedge their bets. They have this national service for soil conservation, I think. And it is one of the foremost advocates of regenerative agriculture, the importance of soil, not only for farming, but also for climate change. I do not know if the ladies and gentlemen of Green Convergence is already familiar with the term drawdown, although it is a controversial proposition, but farming done the right way can help in drawing down carbon. I am convinced of that, although it is a controversial proposition. And also, you end up producing more. The Americans have data on that already. I would recommend that members of the audience take a look at the experiences of Gabe Brown. Take a look at the Google information on Ray Archuleta. That is how I started years ago in the journey. I made most of the mistakes that can be made in agriculture. I made. You know, when I started, when I was a very young fellow, age 18, most of the consultants would laugh at our fellow Batanggenyos. Kasi sa Batangas, multi-story ang very small land holdings, multi-stories. Coconut, jackfruit, then lower, papaya, then pineapple, ginger, root crops. Pinagtatawanan nung araw yan. And yet, yan na ngayon. I hope I was of some help. Try to look at our website. There's data there on supporting my assertion that there is a disconnect between retail and farm gate prices, and also there's data there on imports. Imports, when it comes to retail prices for consumers, it's irrelevant. And I will end it at that and entertain questions if we still have time. No one tried to stop me during my peroration. I hope I did not bore everyone. You should have stopped me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Inchong, for giving us a critical look at our food security situation. We will now take in questions, which is a departure from our usual format, because Attorney...
For which I am thankful, sir.
Yeah, we understand that you still have another appointment. So at this point, we now open the floor for questions.
I forgot my last recommendation.
Okay, sir.
To find a new Secretary of Agriculture.
Yeah, we saw that on your last slide, sir. Okay, anyone who would like to ask a question?
Ma'am Tessa is raising her hand.
Oh, thank you for calling my attention. Yes, Miss Tessa?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Attorney Inchong, for that very informative and eye-opener talk. In fact, I've noticed in our supermarkets, when I want to buy local fruits I hardly see them. So I think it's really you've showed us the real situation, no? I wonder how can we make this community-based system start? Because I think that's what we really need. And in fact, with COVID, a lot of families have started doing their own gardens at home. So how can this be encouraged? And maybe I agree with you that we need local products because it's more nutritious and it's more sustainable. So how can communities start this, and where do we start this with the LGUs? So maybe your advice on that.
In other countries, I do not know if it can apply here, but I know a set of young people who are starting to do it here, entrepreneurs. Farms would group with different commodities, will group together, then offer to initially friends, colleagues. It has to be a conscious decision of people to support farmers. For example, I'm a Rotarian also, but since I have been embattled, I became inactive. But I would recommend to civic organizations to sponsor a farmer by buying their products at a livable price. That's a start. So that they can upgrade their activities in such a way that they do not have to beg from the Department of Agriculture, and they do not have to be part of a system that is corrosive to the soul. In America and in Europe, there is this community-supported agriculture. Sometimes it is at the initiative of consumers, other times it's at the initiative of the farmers. There is this group of young people, entrepreneurs in Central Luzon, I think. Kilala nila Toto Barcelona and nung mga anak ni Danny Fausto sa dairy. They group together and they have this box. Merong tilapia. Depende kung ano yung harvest. May tilapia, may kale, may lettuce. And they marketed it with friends, direct marketing. That is one way of doing it. Of course, there will be those who will belittle this effort, but these are small steps. I think that is the way to go. For farmers to directly market their products, and also for consumers to look for better products. You know, when you part with your money to buy food, you're voting already for which food system you want. I'm not saying to immediately give up on a lot of things, but very slowly, as we recover from this nightmare, or especially during this nightmare, start supporting our farmers. We have this tendency to look for dramatic, sweeping ways of changing things, when actually it is an evolution thing. It has to start with individuals, families, small communities. For example, may mga naglalako ngayon ng mga banana chips. So may gasolinahan, buy. Magkano lang yun? 30 pesos. May naglalako ng kung ano-anong pagkain. Bawasan nyo lang yung load. I mean, these are small steps, but the systemic, the strategic systemic changes will have to come from the advocacies of both the producers and consumers and advocates for the environment. Because magkakanunog po yan magkakasama . agriculture, fisheries, and the environment, and consumer welfare, food safety, magkakasama yan eh. Hindi mo pwede paghiwa-hiwalayan. Kaya nga we're in this crisis of nutrition amidst plenty sometimes. Kaya you have this dichotomy na some people are children are stunted in certain portions of our country. In other portions may obesity problem ka. Dito rin papasok yung mga nutritionists actually. The independent ones, yung hindi hawak ng mga multinationals. I'm sorry if there are those who are working for multinationals, but the agenda in nutrition, in health, in the last 50 years, it's been a disaster for the world.
Really, Bong,
sugar. Sorry, ma'am.
Yeah, I have to, hurry this up a bit because we're...
yes, ma'am. I told you, kailangan awatin niyo ako.
Kaya nga, you have so much to say. And I agree
Sorry,
with you. And as a matter of fact, I've been practicing buying local for a long time now to support our farmers. The cacao that I use regularly, there is a Peru. There's cacao from Peru that's a lot cheaper, but I buy from Mindanao, even if it's more expensive, because we want to support our farmers. And so thank you very much. We might have, do we have time for another question, Carlo?
Yeah, Dr. Galang is raising her hand.
Okay. Let's make it quick.
Sorry, ma'am, for talking too much. This rarely happens.
Dr. Galang, we cannot hear you. Dr. Galang, you need to unmute yourself.
Okay. Maybe just a quick answer to a short question. What if we stop importation altogether? Can the country feed the country?
It should be sequenced, ma'am, and it's a case-to-case basis. With rice, depends on when you do it. With chicken, we can stop it now and we will have no problem. With pork, that's another matter. We have a crisis in pork because they allowed the ASF to get in. And we no longer have that much hogs in Luzon. Were it not for COVID, pork would be very, very expensive right now. And I think, magkano liempo ngayon, ma'am? 320 na yata, 300. In groceries, 400. Chicken pa rin ang mura, ma'am. Meron pa rin sa Commonwealth last week, meron pang 120 to 140. Pero tataas yan, ma'am, pagka yung pressure ng hog ito. Rice, ma'am, kailangan lang timing. It's not an absolute thing, ma'am, whether or not you stop importation. It's part of the menu. But it has to be grounded on the principle that you do not damage your basic sectors, especially farmers and fisher folks, your producers.
Thank you.
Right now, okay lang sa Department of Agriculture na masaktan lahat eh. Basta maganda imahe nila.
Thank you.
Marie, I would like to consult you. We have 3 questions on the chat box.
We have 3 questions. Okay.
Time to ask this.
I think we are going to go over time, maybe up to 6 o'clock today, because we're already almost 30 minutes over time. So, yes.
Yes, ma'am. And, you take time to listen to the fellow from Masipag. I met speakers from Masipag. Yes. On the ground yung mga yan. Magaling yung mga yan.
Yes, so thank you. We will just ask the ones asking the questions. You have it sa chat box, no?
Yes.
So, okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'll read all, Sir Attorney Insham, I'll read all the questions, and then it's up to you how to answer those questions. Let me start. How can we set up community organic seed banks to support urban farming in our homes? And then, what will be the most crucial domestic support for farmers needed for agriculture now that farmers are recovering from COVID-19 impact. And then there's another one, by doing the community farmers, should the price be cheaper for the community than buying in supermarkets? And there's a mix of comments and questions here. We lack institutional infrastructures that will connect the farmers and fishers to market linkages. What does the phrase letting the farmers market their goods directly? I'm reading as it is. If that were easy and available immediately, we don't even need to ask for it. That is not happening means something is missing for generations. What is it? Value chain, supply chain are the issues that were not focused on by our government for 70 years. And there's another one. What is your opinion on the present supply chain? I'm sorry for all these questions, Attorney Insyong. It's up to you now.
Okay, that's a lot of questions. May I remind Bong to be very brief?
Yes, ma'am. Regarding domestic support, presently for rice support, it is under the law, under the Magna Carta for small farmers. It is allowed. Then there were a lot of things, but how to improve the supply chain? The first thing is to make the farmers experience stability for a long period by not allowing them to be damaged by imports, so that they can build up the resources, not only resources in terms of money, but in terms of organization and networking, so that they can market their goods in a better way. They really need to organize. Kami ganun, ma'am eh. Kami kahit pa paano entrepreneurs kami, hirap pa rin kami. Is that short enough, ma'am? Pagbigyan na natin yung ibang speakers.
So that answers all the questions?
Malapit na mag-alas 4, ma'am. Baka awayan na tayo ni Ernie.
Oo nga. So, okay. Thank you very much, Attorney.
Ma'am, permission to leave.
Wait, you listen to me first. I thank you. We thank you very much, Bong, for joining us today and giving us many things to chew on regarding our food insecurity and their causes. Let's give Attorney Bong Insyong a round of Zoom applause. Let's see those hands.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
And now we shall revert to our usual format, which means we will listen to our remaining speakers, note down our questions, and ask them later during the open forum. Moving on, our next speaker is an organic farmer and is the Central Luzon coordinator of Masipag, a nationwide network of farmers' organizations. To speak about food security and traditional rice varieties, please welcome Ryan Damaso.
Nagbutan po tayo kanina.
Ikaw lang.
Salamat po sa ating lahat. Naririnig niyo po ako?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Pwede po ba akong mag-screen share? Or,
Yes.
Okay. So, bago ko po simulan, una po, nagpapasalamat po kami, ako, sa Feeding Convergence, kay Dr. Binagalang sa invitasyon sa amin para makapag-share ng aming karanasan, kaalaman tungkol sa usapin ng food security batay po sa aming karanasan. Salamat din po sa lahat ng bumubuo ng Feeding Convergence. Yung input po kanina ni Sir Attorney Bong Insyong, napakaganda, no? Agree po kami doon sa kanyang napakalalim, napakalawak na analysis sa sitwasyon natin. Sige po, binabati ko nga po pala kayong lahat ng World Foodless Day ngayong araw. No? World Food Day po kasi ngayon, pero maraming nagugutom, kaya World Foodless Day po talaga ang sitwasyon natin. Sige po. Bali yung presentation ko po o yung sharing ko po sa inyo ay tungkol sa paano ba ang masipag ginagawa yung gawain o kampanya tungkol sa pagsisiguro o kasiguruhan sa pagkain, no? Sa panahon ng may pandemya o wala, at saka sa susunod pang mga panahon. Kaya ang tinitle ko na lang po, Food Security in the Pandemic Beyond in Masipag Way. No? Wala po akong naisip na magandang pagdag yung title. Sige. Bali ganito lang po yung magiging maikling sharing ng aking presentation. Maikling history lang po, tapos sino po kami. Then paano po yung mga magsasaka na nai-ensure yung food security sa context ng pandemic and climate change. Saka yung ilang mga take-home messages lang po siguro. Ayan. Okay. So, yan. Maikling balik lang po sa history. So, 1960s, sinilang po yung IRI, International Rice Research Institute sa Pilipinas, sa pamamagitan po ng Rockefeller at Ford Foundation. Sila po yung nagsasabing na mamamahala daw at control sa pananaliksik ng dili sa Asia. IRI, pero package of technology yan na containing mga high-yielding variety seeds. Tapos fossil energy-based external input yan, yung fertilizer, pesticide, machinery, even irrigation. Diyan din po nagsimula na paundarin ang mga irigasyon. Ano? At saka yung pagsisimula ng maraming mga production loan. Parang dyan din po halos nagsimula yung pagsupot ng mga maraming rural banks sa mga kanayunan. Ang layunin daw nila ay para mapakain ang lulubong populasyon, no? Mga mamamayan sa daigdig o sa Asia. At sabi din nila ay para mapataas daw ang kita o income ng ating mga magsasaka. Kaya 1970s, 78% po ng ating palayan sa bansa sa Pilipinas ay na-cover o natamnan na ng mga high-yielding varieties. 1973 nga, dyan po nilusad yung, alam po ng ating mga nauna, no, na yung Masagana 99, no? Yung kampanya po yan ng gobyerno noon. Pero ano nga ba ang naging resulta, no, o pangako ng IRI, no? Noong mga panahon ding 1978 hanggang 1979, lumobo po yung utang palabas natin. Mabilis ding nakalbo dyan ang ating mga kabundukan. Ibig sabihin, ating kalikasan, kapaligiran ay yan din po nagsimula, no? Marami ang pagkaubos ng ating mga kagubatan. Kaya noong 1981, bago pa 1981, naramdaman na po ng mga magsasaka natin na parang may ibang nagiging epekto yung IRI, yung ginagawa ng IRI sa atin. At saka yung tinatawag po nating Green Revolution. Kaya noong 1981, mayroon pong NGO, yung ACES, kung familiar po kayo, yung Agency for Community Education Services Foundation. Nag-aaral po sila ng impact ng high-yielding variety technology sa maliliit na mga magsasaka sa Nueva Tapos ikinumpara po nila yung sitwasyon noong taong 1970 at noong taong 1981. No? So, kaya 1984, may mga village leader, magsasaka, nagsagawa rin po ng komprehensibong after noong 1981 na pag-aaral, nagkaroon po ng kolektibong posisyon kaugnay sa issue ng high-yielding varieties yung mga magsasaka. At nagtulak po sa pagkakaroon ng unang pambansang konferensya yung Bigas Conference. Ano ba yung naging epekto sa atin ng Green Revolution ni Marcos? So dyan po nagsimula at lumaganap yung genetic erosion natin dahil yung ating mga katutubong binhi ay nawala na kontrol. pinalitan ng ibang mga variedad o mga variety ng mga palay na sinasabi nga natin na dati napakarami, ngayon ay kakaunti na lang at saka kontrolado na ng mga malalaking, sabi nga ni Atty. Siong, mga multinational, ano? Tapos yung pag-reduce din po ng ating biodiversity, no? Lalo na po doon sa usapin ng rights associated biodiversity. Yung ating soil nutrient imbalance at saka depletion, dyan din po yan nagsimulang maging malala. No? Pest and disease outbreaks, no? Epekto rin po yan ng Green Revolution. Ang mga tampok po dyan, yung golden apple snail, no? O yung malalaking mga puhod, ano? Na introduce sa atin para daw di umano ay may pagkain ng ating mga magsasaka habang pinapalaki yung kanilang mga palay. Pero kalaunan ay naging pest po yan, no? At hindi na nga na-control ng ating mga magsasaka. Well, kung gusto mong kontrolin, ay kailangan mong bumili, no, ng mga pamatay dyan sa mga peste na yan, ng mga molluscicide na yan. No? At yung pagdami at pag-uso rin po ng mga pesticide, ano, at saka yung mga iba-ibang tipo ng mga lason sa ating mga sakahan. In terms of social impact ng Green Revolution, na-exclude yung mga farmers natin sa technology development cycle. Kasi yung mga dating mga magsasaka natin na nagtutuklas ng sarili nilang mga kaalaman, ay ang nangyari, dumipende na lang sila doon sa binhi na ibinebenta ng mga korporasyon, no? At even yung ibang mga technology, no? Pinalitan yung mga magsasaka natin dyan. Yung cost of production, hindi lumaki, no? Incompatible with economic capability ng mga farmers natin. No? So lalong nabawasan ang kanilang kita. No? Kaya yung usapin ng poverty and malnutrition ay naging malawak din at malalim. No? Gumanda nga yung mga hutil, pero ang problema, nabaon naman sa utang yung ating magsasaka sa kanila. Also, yung mga kaalaman ng ating mga magsasaka ay unti-unting nawawala. Napalitan siya ng mga tayuhang kaalaman, no, na hindi nagmula dun sa ating mga magsasaka. So binago essentially ng Green Revolution ang orientasyon ng magsasaka at saka ng pagsasaka sa Pilipinas. So, mula sa agriculture, naging agribusiness ang tumuhin. No? Kaya noong 1985, yung results ng finding ng research na inilatag dun sa 3 konsultasyong regional from Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao para sa paghugot ng nagkakaisang tindig at pagtingin sa pagsasagawa ng rekomendasyon bilang suporta sa hinaing ng mga magsasaka. So, 1986, ginanap po yung pambansang konsultasyong konferensya sa UPLB na tinaguri ang Bigas Conference, no? O bahang-gunian ng mga issue sa bigas. So, nilapan po yan ng 14 People's Organization at pinadaloy ng mga NGOs, no? At kasama ang ilang mga scientists and observers. Kaya nabuo po yung ad hoc committee upang itambol o i-register ang mga issue tungkol sa bigas, no? At magbalangkas at mag-explore ng mga aktibidad kasabay ng paglahok ng ilang mga makabayang scientists natin. So with that, formal na ilunsad po yung aming organization o yung masipag, yung magsasaka scientifico para sa pag-unlad ng agham at agrikultura or Farmer Scientist Partnership for Development. Yan, yung mga unang pictures ng masipag. Ang layunin masipag ay improve the quality of life of resourceful farmers, no? Sa pamamagitan ng food security and farmers empowerment. Yan. So, yun po yung direksyon ng masipag. Kasi ang paniwala ng masipag, kailangan ng mga magsasaka ay meron siyang control sa binhi, sa seeds. No? At saka sa usapin ng production technologies at saka yung mga kaugnay na mga kaalaman tungkol dito. At syempre, isa sa pinakamahalaga din sa lahat, yung usapin ng lupa. Dapat meron din control ang mga magsasaka sa lupa. Kasi kahit meron kang seeds at meron kang kaalaman, kung wala ka namang lupa, ay mahihirapan kang kamtin yung food security at saka yung farmer empowerment. So, in short, ang masipag po ay mayroong 5 pangunahing programa, yung usapin po ng technical, sa ilalim po ng technical program, yung SIME at saka yung DIPS. Sa SIME po, ito po yung collection, identification, multiplication, management, evaluation. No? Sa DIPS naman po, ito po tinatawag naming Diversified Integrated Farming System. Dito po nakapaloob yung magiging focus ng discussion ko yung tungkol sa trial farm. No? Ito po yung strategy namin kung paano namin natutulungan yung mga maliliit na mga magsasaka para matiyak nila yung food security, no, sa kanilang komunidad. Siyempre, meron din po kami organizational development, advocacy, yung local manufacturing and processing support, at yung panghuli po at pinakabago namin programa ay yung climate change resiliency. Ito po, magkakadugtong lahat ito, no, na mga programa na magkakaiba pero hindi mapaghihiwalay ng mga programs, no, para makamit namin yung aming layunin. So, sige po. Ito po yung strategy ng masipag, yung tinatawag namin trial farm strategy. Ito po yung nakita ni Dr. Ginagalang dun sa mga post ng masipag, no, kung saan paano ba namin ginagawa yung pagtitiyak na mayroong kaming o yung mga magsasaka, mga miyembro namin ay mayroong itatanim ng mga binhi na hindi umaasa sa binibili, no, sa mga komersyal na mga nagbebenta ng mga binhi. So, sige. Papakita ko lang po yung mga unang mga pictures, mga photos, tapos sa panghuli, yung mga paghahalin tulad, no? O pagpapaliwanag kung ano ba sa esensya yung trial farm na ginagawa ng isa. Yan. Una po, lahat ng grupo ng mga magsasaka, no? May bias kami sa maliliit na mga magsasaka, no? Ang aming pong mga miyembro at saka ginagawang katuwang ay mga maliliit na mga magsasaka. Binibigyan po muna namin sila ng orientation. Pinapaliwanag po muna namin kung sino kami, at ano yung programa namin. Tapos kung interesado silang magkaroon ng trial farm, no? Ibig sabihin, ito pong mga magsasaka na ito ay kahit hindi pa mga miyembro ng masipag o hindi pa nag-organic na pagtatanim, no? Kasi kinukumbinsi po namin silang mag-organic. No? Yan. So, orientation, pinapaliwanag po namin yung ano yung organization namin at ano yung policy ng masipag sa binhi, no? Na pwede namin ibigay o ipahiram sa kanila, no? Bilang pagsisimula. No? Yan. So kapag nagkaisa po kami sa orientation at nakumbinsi sila, magpuproceed po kami sa site selection. So saan ba yung lupa na pwedeng taniman ng trial, no? Sila po ang tutukoy noon kung saang lupa, no? Mas in-encourage po namin na sana yung mga trial farm na gagawin namin ay malapit sa daan o sa kalsada o malapit din doon sa mga bahayan para po nakikita ng mga tao kung ano yung ginagawa ng mga magsasaka doon, no? At para na-observe din nila at nababantayan din po nila. Yan. Tapos land prep na po namin para makagawa na po kami ng mga bed, no? Para sa sisid sa wing, no? So sa trial farm po namin, yan po yung mga actual photos, no, yung mga actual na itsura. Gumagawa lang po kami ng mga maliliit na square. Tapos, ang binibigay po namin sa kanila ay 50 different varieties, no, sa isang set. No. So yun po yung tinatanim dyan sa mga square na yan. Tapos yan po yung oobserbahan kung ano yung maganda ang performance. Yan. So, yung 50 varieties po na yan, 20 masipag rice, 20 farmer breadline, tapos 10 traditional varieties. Yung po yung komposisyon ng 50 different varieties na pinapahiram namin doon sa mga grupo ng magsasaka o kahit doon sa mga miyembro namin na gustong mag-trial at subukin sa kanilang mga lupa at saka sa kanilang mga local climate kung ano yung magiging adapted, no? Magandang magiging resulta. Yan. Ito po yung halimbawa ng aming trial farm sa Barangay Baliti sa Arayat, Pampanga. No? May mga pangalan po yan, nakamapping po yan. Ano? Yung mga maliliit pong box na dikit-dikit, yan po yung mga bagong variety. Yung naman pong medyo malalaking bed, ang tawag naman na po namin dyan ay verification trial. Ibig sabihin na itanim na namin yan, tapos kung nakapili po yung mga magsasaka ng mga magagandang performing varieties, ibine-verify naman po namin. Kung sa tag-ulan, anong performance niya, at sa tag-araw, anong magiging performance niya. Yan. So, siyempre, transplanting, yan. Sa trial farm po namin, hindi po namin yan pinapalagyan ng kahit anong uri ng abono, whether commercial, chemical fertilizer, or organic fertilizer. Wala po kaming sinasabi sa kanila na ilagay dyan. Basta tubig lang po na malinis. No? Yan. Para mas makita po namin kung ano talaga yung magiging performance ng mga binhi sa kanilang lupa. Yan. So, gumagawa po kami ng mga line, ano, para may sundan sila doon sa pagtatanim. Tsaka yun nga po, dapat laging may mga pangalan, may mga tag para hindi po mahalo-halo, no? At magkaligaw-ligaw kapag ino-observe na po nila yung performance ng mga tinanim nila. So after po namin, monitor na po namin yan, no? Sa paglaki po nila. No? Mula dun sa gaano kabilis ang paglaki, gaano karami ang mga suwi, no? Yung mga dahon, matangkad ba ito o pandak ba ito, madali ba itong matumba ng hangin sa mga tubig o sa baha. Kahit yung mga insekto na makikita nila doon sa saklaw ng kanilang trial farm, dino-document din po nila, no? At inaalam ng mga magsasaka. So pag lumaki na po yung mga trial at pwede na siyang anihin, naglulunsad po kami ng tinatawag na Farmers Field Day. Yan. Sa Farmers Field Day po, tinitiyak namin na mayroong mga representative from women, mga non-masipag farmers. Siyempre, yung mga masipag farmers namin, nandiyan. Tinitiyak din po namin na may representation from the youth. No? At nag-iimbita rin po kami palagi ng mga local government officials sa barangay, sa munisipyo, sa Municipal Agriculture Office, no? Nag-i-invite din po kami ng mga scientists, mga academic, at saka yung mga advocates din. Para sama-sama naming ma-observe, makita yung naging performance, naging resulta ng trial farm ng isang samahang magsasaka. So yung kung nakikita po niyo yung mga pictures, yan talagang kinikilatis nila yan. During Farmers Field Day, sinusukat po namin yan, binibilang namin ang mga butil, no? Bawat variety. So kung 50 na variety po yan, magkukuha po kami ng mga sampling dyan sa bandang gitna at yun po yung aming tinatala, no, sa ginawa po naming simplified evaluation sheet para meron kaming magandang comparison. Yan. So parang ito po, yung nakikita ninyong tarpaulin na yan, yung pangalan, klase ng mga uri ng binhi, 5 po yan, tapos nandiyan po yung mga ino-observe namin mga katangian o naging performance ng mga binhi. Katapos, pipili po kami ng top 10 to top 20 ng mga performing varieties based po sa preferences ng mga farmers. Kung ano po yung kanilang nagustuhan, bakit. Nagbobotohan po yan. No? Halimbawa, may mga susulat po namin yung 50 variety, tapos sino po ang may boto sa ganitong variety. Tapos kukunin po namin yung pinakamaraming boto at yun po yung ilalagay namin sa ranking ng top 10 hanggang top 20. Bukod po dun sa mga physical na katangian nila, sinasaing din po namin at tinitikman para makita rin po yung malaman din po ang lasa ng mga tinanim nilang mga palay at bigas. Para maging bigas at sinasaing po kung mabango ba ito, malambot, masarap, etc. So, mula po doon, yung pong mga maaani, magiging pag-aari na po ng samahan at sa susunod pong taniman, yun po ulit yung kanilang itatrial. Yung mapipili naman po nilang top 10 hanggang top 20, itatanim po nila uli yun ng hiwalay bilang verification trial para malaman kung sa panahon na tag-ulan ay parehas ba ang performance sa panahon ng tag-init o tag-araw. Kasi pwede pong magkaiba yun. Ganun po yung magiging proseso niyan. Tapos, ito pong mga samahang magsasaka na ito, pwede po uling mag-request sa amin, sa Masipag, ng panibagong set ng mga binhi na kukumpleto doon sa kanilang 50 varieties. No? So, yun. Yung nahiram po nila na una sa aming 50 varieties, ibabalik po nila sa amin yun para ma-ensure po na ibabalik doon sa aming backup farm yung mga binhi. At nakukuha din po namin yung mga kopya ng kanilang mga observation para naikukumpara din namin sa ibang mga location na na-trial yung mga binhi yun. Kung pare-parehas ba ng mga performance at ano yung mga galing ng mga binhi na yun sa iba't ibang lokasyon. Yeah. Pag ilalarawan po natin yung trial farm, para sa amin, nagpapakita po ito kung paano pamahalaan ang buhay na seed bank ng samahan. No? Samahan o ng komunidad para sa paggamit at pagkonserba ng yamang genetics, no? Sa gawaing genetic conservation at paggamit nito. At ang trial farm din po ay nagpapakita ng mga strategies kung paano ito sasakatuparan. Kasi ano po yan, dahil volunteer yan, nag-uusap yung mga magsasaka kung sino ang nakatoka, tapos anong gagawin nila, no? Para mapangalagaan nila yung kanilang trial farm. Nagiging estratehiya rin po yan, pangkaundaran. Ang mga problema at pangangailangan ng magsasaka at ang kanilang mga ninanasa ay binibigyan ng bagong perspektiba kapag nandoon sila sa trial farm. Kasi nagpupulong yung mga magsasaka mula dun sa kanilang mga araw-araw na obserbasyon dun sa kanilang trial, nagkakaisa sila kung ano ang mga dapat gagawin, no? Para kung may nakikita man sila mga problema at pangangailangan, collectively nasusolusyonan nila. So, yung usapin o yung nawawalang kultura ng bayanihan ay in a way na ibabalik natin. Ang mga batayan sa pamamahala o management guidelines ay napapalabas mula sa mga cultural management practices na sinusubukan doon sa trial farm. Ang suporta at interes at pakikibahagi at ang pagiging nasyonalista ng mga siyentista natin ay tuwirang naihahayag sa ating trial farm kasi napapasuporta po natin yung ating mga scientists sa ating mga maliliit na magsasaka. Ang trial farm din po ay nagpapatibay ng partnership. Yung mga magsasaka, yung tinatawag nating mga prime movers, no? Sila po yung gumawa niyan eh. Po yung nag-observe, sila ang halos karamihan ng gawin. Kami pong mga NGO, saka yung mga scientists, nagiging facilitator lamang po. At support groups in terms of technical. Ang trial farm ay nagko-confirm ng partnership bilang participatory, coalitional, multi-sectoral at multidisciplinary. Yan. Sa trial farm din po, nagpapakita ito na ang mga magsasaka ay maaaring mag-research, magsaliksik. Nagmamanage ng research farm, nakapag-verify ng technology, nakalilikha ng sarili nilang technology, at nakapaglilipat o nakakapag-transfer ng kaalaman o ng technology sa kapwa nilang magsasaka. Kaya sila ang mas may kredibilidad ng mga guro. Sa trial farm, ang samahan ng mga magsasaka ay nagpapakita kung paano nila po napapamahalaan ng kanilang samahan at napapalakas ang kanilang pagkakaisa o yung pagkis. At ang kanilang pakikipag-ugnayan sa iba pang mga grupo, ahensya. Yan. Kasi ang pagtatagumpay po ng trial farm dapat sama-samang ginagampanan ng samahan. Hindi lang po ng isang tao, dalawang tao o ng mga leader. Yan, nagpapakita rin po ito at nagtutulak ng voluntarism sa paggawa. Wala pong bayad, walang sweldo, yung kanilang pagtugaygay o paggawa doon sa kanilang trial farm. Nagpapakita po ito ng pinakamaiging kooperasyon mula sa bawat isa at makapagsusuporta po sa mas epektibong programa sa training. No? Pag may trial farm po, naglulusad kami ng rice breeding training. No? Lalo na kapag sa panahon ng namumulaklak na po yung mga palay na nakatrial, nag-organize po kami ng mga rice breeding training na kung saan yung mga kwalipikadong mga farmer na pwede namin sanayin, ay tinitrain namin kung paano mag-breed ng sarili nilang palay. Ang mga trial farm po ay modelo para sa pagbabago at saka sa pagko-convert, no? O yung conversion. Kasi mabibitness nila doon kung paano yung ito ba pwede ba talaga, no? Kasi maraming mga tanong diyan Pwede ba talaga 'yon na kahit wala kang ilagay na pataba sa lupa, magbubunga ba yung mga bini? So marami na po kaming karanasan na ganyan na nabasag namin yung mga myth na yun na sabi ng mga magsasaka, pwede pala. At saka sabi rin nila, meron pa palang mga binhi pwede namin magamit na hindi na kailangan bumili, no? sa mga commercial na nagbebenta ng mga binhi na nakadepende sa mga highly chemical o mga input na lason. Yeah. So ito po yung mga halimbawa ng mga trial farm at saka yung mga ginagawa ng pictures. Kaya po sa isang trial farm, iba-iba po ang itsura ng mga palay. Iba-iba rin ang malaki, iba-iba ang kulay. Yun po yung magiging itsura na. So sa trial farming po, mismo ang magsasaka na ang nakakagawa ng kanyang sariling binhi. At siya rin mismo ang nakakatuklas, nakakagamit ng akmang teknolohiya para sa kanyang pagsasaka na crucial sa pagsisiguro sa pagkain. Hindi na nakaasa sa mga commercial seeds na nakapakete sa abonong kemikal at herbisidyo. Sisiguro din dito na mas malaki ang katatagan sa epekto ng nagbabagong klima sa mga magsasaka at pagsasaka. Dahil makikita nila dyan sa kapag bumagyo o kaya mas matindi ang tag-araw, tag-init at walang tubig, makikita nila doon kung ano yung mga binhi, mga klase ng binhi na mag-survive sa kanilang lupa. Sabi nga po ng isa naming member organization sa Gabaldon, Nueva Ecija, malaking tipid sa production nila, no, yung paggamit ng mga organikong binhi, no, mula sa masipag. Bukod doon, siguradong ligtas pang kainin, no, yung kanin mula doon sa mga bigas na nagagawa nila. No. Yun, sabi rin nila, magandang option kaysa doon sa tinutulak na yun ng DA na golden rice, no, para doon sa di umano ay para labanan ng vitamin A deficiency sa bansa. Yan po yung sinabi ni Tatay Ed Acosta sa yung pong samahan nila ay yung Sama Ka Na Malinaw sa Barangay Malinaw, Gabaldon, Nueva Ecija. So yan po yung picture na unang trial po nila sa kanilang bukid na manage po ng kanilang samahan. Kung titignan niyo po yung binhi, no? Parang halos kawangis din ng mga high-yielding varieties and mga hybrid, di ba? Kunting kaalaman lang po, sa Masipag National Backup Farm po sa Santa Rosa, Nueva Ecija, meron po kami dyan 2,000 plus varieties ng palay. Mix na po yun, mga masipag line, farmer bred line, tsaka mga traditional na itinatanim po namin kada cropping. No? Para matiyak namin na nananatiling buhay at healthy yung mga binhi yan na pwede pong mahiram ng mga maliliit na magsasaka kung sila interesadong gumamit ng ganitong klaseng binhi. Hindi po kami nagbebenta ng binhi. Hindi po kami nagbebenta ng palay. Papahiram po kami. Pero yung pahiram po namin ay hindi marami. Hindi kaunti lang, sapat para i-testing nila sa kanilang mga lupain at makita ang performance. Tapos sila na po ang dapat magparami nito. Kung talagang mayroong interest at desidido yung mga samahang magsasaka ngayon sa pagtungo sa gawaing sustainable organic agriculture. Yung pong nakikita nyo na photo, bawat isang botelya, nagre-represent po ng iba-ibang mga binhiyan. No? Pero siyempre ano lang po yan, dinisplay lang po namin. Meron po kaming talagang kamalig na nandun naka-imbak yung aming mga healthy buhay ng mga binhi. So, ayan po, halimbawa yung mga pangalan ng mga iba-ibang variety ng binhi na na-develop na ng mga magsasaka at saka ng masipag mismo doon sa aming National Backup Farm at saka yung ibang mga traditional. May pula, may brown, may black, may puti, iba pa. Yan, ito po yung picture ng aming National Backup Farm sa Santa Rosa, Nueva Ecija. Kung papansinin niyo po, square, iba-iba yung nakatanim po dyan. 2,000 plus varieties po yan hanggang doon sa dulo. Ayan, tinatanim po namin yan doon. So, siyempre, bukod po sa alay, dinidevelop din po namin yung sa gulay at saka sa prutas. Kaya nagkakaroon po kami ng tinatawag na seed exchange, no, yung pagpapalitan ng aming mga binhi, no, ng mga magsasaka. No. Kaya kasi siguro na may maraming koleksyon ang mga magsasaka namin ng iba't ibang uri ng mga binhi mula sa palay, gulay, mais, at prutas at iba pa. Ayan po yung mga halimbawa ng mga photos ng mga miyembro namin sa MSC. So dahil organic, syempre, GMO-free po ang sipag. No? So siguro, panghuli na lang, para po matyak natin yung usapin ng kasiguruhan sa pagkain, kailangan itaguyod natin yung biodiversity conservation sa pamamagitan ng pagpapractice natin ng sustainable agriculture and farming and organic production. Bukod doon, dapat yakin din po natin na nadidevelop at nasusuportahan yung mga local marketing and processing ng ating mga maliliit na magsasaka. Para yung kanilang mga surplus na ani na labis na doon sa pangangailangan ng kanilang mga pamilya ay pwede naman nilang ibenta para makadagdag doon sa kanilang kita. Ang kasi ng masipag, family first before profit. Unahin mo na yung pagkain ng pamilya bago ka magbenta. At kung magbebenta naman po ang mga magsasakang masipag, hindi po una sa labas, kundi doon muna po sa kanilang community, doon sa kanilang barangay. Mismo doon sa kanilang mga miyembro, kapitbahay na hindi nagtatanim ng palay o ng hindi nag-organic, sila po yung target ng market. At kung may sobra pa po at may batayan pa, pwede nang ilabas ng kanilang bayan, hindi sa labas ng probinsya, hanggang sa iba pang lugar sa Pilipinas. Ito rin po yung paraan ng masipag, ng mga magsasakang masipag, para sa coping and adaptation mechanism to climate change and pandemic. Marami po kaming natanong ng mga miyembro namin na maliliit na mga magsasaka. Nung tumama yung pandemya, hindi ho sila nahirapan sa usapin ng supply ng pagkain, at least yung bigas. Kasi nakakapag-imbak po sila ng kanilang pagkain bigas. Siyempre, ang panawagan din po namin, yung agroecology bilang better normal na gawain. Hindi yung the usual na ginagawa nga ng Department of Agriculture na nakasandig pa rin tayo doon sa importasyon. Napakababa pa rin ng presyo ng palay. Paano makakalaban yung mga maliliit natin magsasaka kung 10.50 per kilo ang sariwang palay dito po sa Gimban, Nueva Ecija. Kaya yung gawain po ng masipag ay it's a partnership, a network, siyempre, philosophy and way of life po. Hindi lang po siya usapin ng technology. Panghuli, dahil World Foodless Day ngayon, gusto ko lang pong banggitin ito na yung aming panawagan ngayon, Farmers Fight for Food System Change. The prevailing food system has made farmers, especially in the Philippines, poorer and hungrier. It has been causing misery to the lives and livelihoods of our farmers, and ironically, driving majority of the toiling masses into further hunger and malnutrition, especially now in the time of COVID-19. On World Foodless Day, there is no other resort but for farmers to change the food system. We must do away with the business as usual agriculture that prioritize profit by treating food as a commodity over the people's rights to food and farmers' rights to resources. Food system should be guided by farmer-led approach to food security. Agroecology can be tapped by farmers as a holistic approach to attaining sustainable, just, and equitable food system with the aim to contribute to food sovereignty. Kaya yung aming hashtag, Food and Rights Now, Hungry for Change, Agroecology Now. So, yun lamang po at maraming salamat.
Maraming salamat, Sir Ryan, sa pagbabahagi mo sa adhikain at mga natatanging gawain ng masipag. Samahan mo kami mamaya sa open forum.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Our next speaker is an accomplished public servant as a former Undersecretary for Trade and Industry. Undersecretary for Agriculture, and Secretary for Presidential Flagship Programs and Projects. He co-founded Alianza Agricultura and Movement for Water Security. He received many awards in his career in agribusiness, including the Gawi Award for Outstanding Contribution for the Philippine Agricultural Economics and Development Association. He is the current president of the Management Association of the Philippines Agribusiness and Countryside Development Foundation. To speak about rice sustainability in the new environment, friends, let us all welcome Dr. Ernesto Ordonez. Sir?
There we go. I have unmuted myself. I'm now able to speak. Well,
Okay.
thank you very much for that. And I'd like to congratulate you. I understand it's your 364th workshop, the longest in the world. And I'd like to start by saying that I not only applaud that, I think with an honor like that comes a responsibility. For example, this Masipag, I've heard about them for a long time. Is Convergence going to listen to them and clap it and then say goodbye? Or is it going to do the next step, which is, if this thing is good, is it not going to use its power and prestige of top academicians with the longest running in the world to go now and engage the Department of Agriculture? The Department of Agriculture, where I worked for 2 years as operations manager, is extremely different from the Department of Trade and Industry. Because the Department of Trade and Industry, they're trained to manage. The Department of Agriculture, they're trained to grow, not necessarily to manage. And that's the problem. That's why Mr. Inchong is so frustrated. And actually, I've been at this since 2003 with Alianza Agricultura. I've never seen so much anger. I would like to say that Mr. Inchong talks about his point. It does not reflect necessarily all the people in the Agri-Fisheries Alliance. Is one of them. I'm the coordinator of 5 coalitions. Some want Secretary Dar to stay, some want him to leave, but I've never seen such anger as now. And I think it's because we need more communication. For example, Masipag. Masipag is doing a great thing. Is Convergence going to say thank you and goodbye? Or will you take a next step and look at it? Because I think it's very good. I've heard about it. Because if I go to the Department of Agriculture and say, look at Masipag, who am I? But if it's you, a bunch of the top academicians, right? If you look at it and you see it's good and you study it, and with your clout and connections, you tell him, they might listen and they might follow. And do you know, that will do so much more. I like to tell you about my own experience. For 2 years, I've been giving seminars in different products. There's no job that's created. They clap, they smile. No good. So what we had to do is we have to look people who had the money, who had the land, who had the water, and that's where we went. And now, just to let you know, there's one farm. They used to do, you know, they hardly do coconuts. They do hybrid, which is half the time and double the yield. You know, they get only 20,000 hectare. They made 800,000 in the hectare. Why? Because you taught them intercropping. And they intercrop the good kind of banana. And they made 100,000. Do you know that is so important? And I'd like to let you know that my training is really industry. You did not mention that I was head of cement in 6 countries, correct? Okay? And I know this very well. But my love is agriculture. And my love, I think, is going to be convergence. Because convergence has environment. And in my first slide, I'll show you how I really love environment. But my doctorate is in the transfer of technology into the real setting. This is the problem, no? In the Philippines. We talk, we don't do. And you know who does what we talk? Taiwan and Thailand. They take it and implement it. In the Philippines, we have 17,000 extension workers for agriculture. Guess what? We do not have 7,000 extension workers in agriculture because they now report to the mayors, and many mayors don't care and they're not guided. So agriculture is going to the dogs. The anger of Mr. Conchong is my anger. But he kind of says, resign, Dr. Secretary. No, for me, I say, you can do that. But some of us would like to get his anger and transform it into something good, all right? And with Masipag there, who's doing fantastic work, but he never got the real clout. You know, if agriculture says this is fine, this thing will spread. For example, me, I was planting sugar, I took out sugar. I heard sweet potato is 3.5 tons. I heard that's technology, 25 tons. I put it in my farm. I got 35 tons in 1 hectare. There are communists in my town of Balayan. I went to the communists because I was an activist. I had a warrant of arrest for subversion for 9 years, but I was not a communist. But the communists don't touch me because I know I fought for freedom. So I said, why are you going to the Communist Party? You're going to get killed. I want peaceful. They said, because the landlord is screwing us. Who's the landlord? A politician's brother. I went there. I said, I'll pay him double. I brought my sweet potato there, and they grew and they became rich also. You see? So what we have to do is, even though we don't like some people like that landlord, we have to see what's possible, but we have to generate the technology and make it into action. And here's Masipag. They're fantastic. If the government only put in their clout, and I do that if you suggest they do that, then this thing will spread. That's why Taiwan and Thailand and Vietnam are successful. There is drive. We don't see that in agriculture, do we? We don't see that. And I know it was Operations DTI. I was head of Operation Agriculture. I was head. I left because they wanted me to be corrupt. I left. All right. But you know, for me, some people want Secretary Dar to leave. Fine. Everyone can say what he wants. In the meantime, I want to do what can be done. And Convergence, your group, is the longest in the world. You have the top people. They have you, Mr. Moderator. You have Nina Galang, Vice President Miriam. My gosh, you got fantastic people there. Let us now mobilize it. What's my job? I want to be your tool because you have the credibility, but I'm the one with the tools. Because as you also did not mention, I was appointed to head water, and 6 secretaries were in my group, and they gave the reports to me, right? So I do have access to them, but I don't have your credibility, and I don't have your expertise. But if you do it, no, instead of having Masipag go away into the wide blue yonder, and there he goes again, he's doing a great job. Maybe it's increasing, but you know, with the government saying we're gonna make this a national program, right? Okay, then they poured in the money, then it flies like the Green Revolution. Nothing until Salas said, let's do it, and they did it. And later on, it turned bad, and Masipag knows that. But has anybody got Masipag's point of view and spread it the way Salas did the revolution? No, it's time we do that, but Masipag cannot do it. You know why? They're still there. Not much is happening. I mean, there's a lot. But if the government puts behind, okay, they're 41 billion pesos, right? I know where it goes, you know. I mean, I know the budgets very well. You put it in something like that, it grows. So that's my thing. And now let me go on to my formal presentation because there's only 2 very simple points. Next slide, please. Next slide. You know, I'm an environment person. They used to ask me, how come your DTI? Parang your DNR? Because you love the environment. Okay, so rise and environment. Next slide, please. Next slide. What I will tell you in the next slide, please, is what he's been saying, all right? You get fertilizer and pesticide, they kill the environment. They pollute they destroy our soil, etc. Water use, the planting. There is a variety, all right, that you can use which uses little water because our thing uses too much water. And do you know irrigation is free? What happens if it's free? The people who get it waste it. And the people who don't need it, I mean, who need it very badly, don't get it kasi ginamit na, kasi libre. Nawawas tayo. And water foresting, India gets 60%, I'll repeat, 60% of their water. We get 4%. My God, right? We should get that water, not only for agriculture, also for feeding and seeing. And finally, water management. I told you, it's true. I founded Movement for Water Treaty, but I did that from point of view that I was commissioned by the government, and I have 6 books, each one signed by UPLBD, and they've done nothing on it. And that's why if Convergence jumps onto this, we'll be fine, right? And there's something called Integrated Resource Water Management, where it's very related to environment, because you guys are environment, right? They bring together, they use it in the whole world. Do we do it? Well, they say they do it. They do not do it because they're supposed to be the Water Basin Management Council, which everybody has. And guess what they're giving? They're 18 Water Basin Management Councils, 1 million pesos a year. And yet, you know, I love women. They're better than men many times. There's a person there called Hailey Kuwait, and she's not only, you know, all the awards, no, but she told me if you give 1 million and you add only 10 million, that thing will find. How can you move with 10 million? Because if you're in the council, you are with the different departments, agencies that have maybe 200 million pesos. But since no one's orchestrating them, nothing's happening. But if you give this council the 10 million organization, you know what I mean? So I think you heard that I am in the Management Association Philippines, because for me, the important thing right now is groups like Convergence who can objectively say what's good and then push from a very good point. And I think the fact that you're the longest in the world is fantastic. And we, Mr. Moderator, and Nina Galang, wow, with a cast, right? But let's now get on from the lectures into now mobilizing. and I would like to offer my services, because if I do it, they won't believe me. If you do it, it'll fly. But of course, you have to look at Masipag first and see if really it is really viable for the entire country, right? Because if it's not, they can do their thing, which is very good. But if it's viable for the whole country, like my kamote, right? Okay, 2.5 tons, I turned 2.5 tons, because the country didn't know about it. Similarly, that thing can help here. Okay, the next slide, please. The next slide talks about rice. You know, if you do masipag, but you cannot sell rice, your masipag is worthless because you cannot use it because no one will buy your rice, correct? Because they're going to import everything. Next slide, please. All right, so what will I do in the next slide? I'll tell you the past, what happened. I'll tell you today. I'll tell you how the farmers are faring today. And I'll tell you the solution. Now the past, all right? Very briefly, next slide, please. For the past, what happened? We had NFA deciding how much to import, how much to pay, ang dami pang corruption, and kailan. Minsan, pagdating pa ng harvest, my gosh, terrible, no? Okay, so with tarification, do I like that? Definitely, I like it, definitely. Because if you let the government decide that, it'll go crazy. If you let market forces, better. But it must be done in the right way. It's done in the wrong way. Now, why are we doing this? Well, first we told that to the World Trade Organization. Guess what? Guess what? 24 years ago. And we didn't do anything. We're the only country in the whole world who didn't do anything. So sa takot natin, pumayag tayo. Ang problema sa pagpayag natin, mali naman yung tariff rate, okay? So we said, don't worry, we'll take out government, which we did. Price sacrifice, which we did also. But the whole thing is in the wrong structure. So let me tell you about the correct structure. Let us look at the next slide called the present. What is happening today? The next slide, please. You have the rice tarification. Totoo, private sector. 35% kasi yun ang binigay natin. Sabi nga ni Bong Insyong, tayo payag, nagpapagwapo yung pala masama para sa atin. Masyadong mababa yun. Pero sinabi na, huwag kang magreklamo kasi mayroong 10 billion support. Dapat yung pabinigay bago tinama tayo. Hindi ngayon namamatay na tayo. Ngayon pa sila tutulong. Dapat tutulong muna pag kaya na, yun ang bigyan mong 35 tariff. No? Ano nangyari po? Ang farmers, they lost 60 billion pesos. Ha? At yung presyo, itong Vietnam, ha? Kaya na, mas magaling tayo dyan eh. Pero alam mo, tayo, production was na 12, sila 6 pesos. Kung dali mo yung bigas nila dito, pagdating dito, 7 pesos equivalent. Pag lagyan mo ng taripa, 35%, 9 pesos, paano tayo makakalaban? Ang production cost natin ay 12. At dali mo yan sa warehouse 12, patay tayo. Kaya nangyari yan. Maliban doon, kasi napakamura, sabi ng mga importer, hoy, malaki masyadong kita dito. 3 million ang ginawa, hindi 1.2. Nagwala na ang bansa natin. Sa next slide, please. Next slide. Sa next slide po, nakikita natin ang presyo. Tignan mo nangyari, no? Di ba? Palay natin, 19. Tapos, nagkamuling gobyerno ko, again 20. Nung tinamaan itong 35%, bagsak sa 15. Bagsak. Ano yung nangyari sa income natin? Yung 30,000 na napakaliit na, naging 12,000. Naku, nag-aangal na. Si Presidente Duterte, sabi niya, naku, masama yan, tuloy na magsasaka. Pigil mo import. Sabi ng advice niya, hindi pwede, tinuloy niya. Nakita niya na naman, pigil yung import. Sabi ng advice niya, hindi pwede, tinuloy niya. Hanggang ngayon, tuloy yung problema. Ang problema, hindi sinabi ng advisors kay Duterte ang tamang solusyon. Ang tamang solusyon ay hindi tigil yung import. Ngunit, taas yung taripa para yung import, hindi masyadong mura, kasi napakamura lahat ng import. Kung yung mas mahal, kukunti lang mag-import. Di ba? Yun ang dapat. Okay? So ngayon, sabi na, ayos na, hindi. Nagre-reklamo yan. Sinabi nga sa inyo, sabi ng gobyerno, 15. Alam ko yan eh. Kasi alam po ninyo, may doctor din ako, katulad nyo, no? Ha? Hindi naman random sample. Alam mo bakit yung presyo bibigyan nila? Hindi yan ang presyo sa mga kasulukan. Alam mo bakit? Tinanong ko alam mo, sabi ko sa DA, bisitahin yung PSA. Ayaw niya magbisita. Ewan ko bakit. Ako nagbisita. 3 araw. Nandun ako. Kasi marunong rin ako sa statistics. No? Hindi naman pupunta sa random na alam natin. Pupunta sila sa mga malaking lugar. Kinakausap nila yung nakikita lang nila at tinatanong ano ba ang presyo. Di ba? So tama sila pa rin. Yung presyo na hindi sila nagsisinungaling. Magaling yan. Pero sabi nga sa akin, hindi pwede mag-random. Wala silang pera personal. Kaya yun ang sinasabi. Pero hindi sinungaling yung sinasabing mura, no? Ang nahihirap sila, no? Kaya ano nangyari dyan? Yung kwan po, family threshold po, 10,500 para mabuhay. Ano nakuha nila? Alam po ninyo, yung palay na dry, 16,000 na kilo sa kanan, sa net income, 60,000. Yung wet, 3,000. Ba't naman nababa? Sapagkat alam po niyo, sa karamihan ng magsasaka natin, wala silang drying facilities. Minsan sa kalye lang, minsan hindi kakadry. So, ang binibigyan nila ng presyo, maliit lang. Kaya, ang kita po nila, 3,700 pesos. Naku, magkakagulo na tayo, di ba? Okay. In 2020, sabihin natin, 2 irrigation. Ngunit, ang irrigated lang, 60%, 40% of irrigation. No? Sabihin lang natin, ha, na dry, swerte ka na. Sabihin natin na 6 months, swerte ang irrigated. Ha? Bawat buwan, 2,700 monthly. Paano yan nabubuhay? Sapagkat yung pagkain nila galing sa kanila at meron silang extra, mga 2,500 gano'n, no? Pero lahat sila mahirap, no? Kasi ang poverty threshold po ay 10,000. Masyado mababa ito. Ayan na. So, huling slide ko na. Di ba? Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Ano ba solusyon? Yung problema. May problema, bilang solusyon. Yan maganda sa masipag. Nakita nila ang problema, gumalaw sila. Ang problema lang, sino nagtutulong sa kanila? Ay kukonti, baka pagkanagran. Dapat buong gobyerno, katulad ng Vietnam, katulad ng Malaysia, katulad ng Thailand, papasok yan kung maganda tutulak na. Ngayon, ba't hindi ganon? Kasi wala sa buhay nila ng convergence. Kung pumunta kayo dyan, tingnan nyo muna, hindi basta pwede pumunta doon. Tingnan nyo yung masipag, pag-aralan nyo. Tapos lagyan yung pangalan nyo, Nina Galang. Lagay yung pangalan, yan, President, Vice President. No? Track record, itong study natin, no? Well, hindi makakaindi. Tapos punta tayo sa mga television at radio stations, okay? Kasi 70,000 workers doon para agriculture. Wala na. Dati 7,000 sa agriculture sa mga mayor. Yung mga mayor naman, maraming mahusay, mga hindi mahusay. Nagiging political kwan lang yan. Officer, marami. Right? Right? Alam ko yun kasi nandun ako, undersecretary ako, di ba? Wala na nga. So kailangan pasukin. Pag ginawa yan at with political will of President Duterte and the others, tulangan niya, pwede mangyari yan. Sabi nila, wala na, palis na yan. Hindi. 2 years, matagal yan. Ayaw ko na mahirapan ng tao for 2 years. Dapat everyday tinutulungan natin, no? At yung 35%, mali. Kasi sa mga international trade, no? Baka hindi mo rin sinabi. Ako pa ay Vice President ng buong Asia ng United Nations Council for Trade and Development. Buong Asia, right? Okay. So meron akong karanasan sa international. Sa buong mundo, pag may taripa ka, hindi basta 35%. 35%, sinabi niya, wala silang masabi. Pero pag ginawa na, sabi ng WTO, sabi ng batas natin, kung mali, ayusin nyo. Tawag doon, safeguard. Ano yung tamang safeguard? Ano yung presyo na yung imported price at yung domestic price, pareho lang. Kasi kung yung imported price mas mura, ganyan nangyari, puro import ko ang mga tao natin. Kung ang import price masyado mahal, walang mag-import at puro domestic tayo. Dapat may labanan. So ang equality niya noon ang kinompare nila, 70 to 85%. Doon may study yan, ha? May study yan. Last August, sinulat ko na yan, walang ginawa. Nung nag-umpisa study, si Montemayor, may summa cum laude yan from Ateneo, nag-Concha, Federation of Farmers. Ako, may summa cum laude ako sa Yale University, average, nagsabitan ako. Matinik yata ang pinabit namin. Wala silang sagot. Wala silang sagot. So ako yung nanalo ng cement safeguards. No? Ako yung nanalo nun. Okay? Ano kinawa ko? Isang lawyer, ang bayad namin. Alam mo, lumaban nun. Matinik, si Nonong Cruz at si Marcel, ombudsman, right? Pero may magaling pa sa kanila, nanalo, no? 6 million pesos, right? Nanalo. So sabi sa akin, paano yan? Sabi ko, Kate, hindi. Tulong mo na magsasagot. Nung nangyari ito, dinala ko siya. Nung punta siya, sabi niya, I will never talk to again. They're too mayabang, they don't wanna listen. Kasi hindi sila convergent. Sino ba itong abogadong ito? Pero matinik, ha? They won. If you want cement safeguards, it is easy to win agriculture safeguards. So we raise that 35%. And all of a sudden, people won't import so much. And even if they import, ang kalaban ng local, hindi naman ganun kababa, no? medyo mataas, so hindi nila kailangan bagsak yung presyo masyado. Di ba? Okay, yun dapat umpisa. Tapos na pagkas ng ilang taon, babawas sa 35%. Huwag mo sabihin palagi kasi magiging spoiled. Dapat lumaban sila. No? Pero bigyan mo rin sila ng pinangako noon pa. Dapat may silang technical assistance. Wala. Extension workers. Ano ginagawa nila? Hindi nagtutulong. Right? Okay? Bigyan nila ng konting tech seeds, fertilizer. Ginagawa nila ngayon. Ang problema ko, dapat binigay yun noon pa eh. Noon, tapos pwede ang 35%, di ba? Ngayon, binira sila, papatayin sila, ngayon bibigyan ng ayuda. Eh, namamatay na, medyo mali. Anyway, tuloy mo yun. Tapos, no, pag okay na, 35%, pwede pang 0% pag labanan na tayo. Alam po niyo, may Senate President Bill Clinton. Sa mga inyo, nanonood ng American politics, yung Trump at Biden, labanan yan. Noon, masaya rin. Si Clinton lumaban. Sabi, but problema Amerika? Sabi niya, it's the economy, stupid. Hindi ito education, hindi, yan lang. The whole economy. It's the economy, stupid. Saan magsasako, itong pan ito, bibigay sila ng irrigation. Tama rin yun, no? Pero habang ginagawa niyo yun, habang ginagawa yun, namamatay ang mga magsasaka kasi masyado mababa ang presyo. Ha? Oh, so, it is the safeguard, stupid. Safeguard, ayusin yan, safeguard, okay? Okay, gawin mo yung tarification. Sabi ko sa mga iba, tanggalan mo yan, balik tayo sa dati. Hindi, dati, gobyerno said, puro kalukuhan, puro mali, di ba? Sobrang mali. Pero, dapat tamang taripa. At yung taripa ay dapat yung ginawa ng buong bansa. At ang problema ko dito sa ginawa namin, tinatanong ko, ano nangyari sa submission namin ni Montemero at ako? Walang sagot. I mean, ano to? Democracy to. Tapos sabihin niya, tama na mali. So, sinulatan ko 5 sekretary. Sinalatan ko. Kasi alam po, ako rin secretary dati, di ba? Di ba? Hindi naman ako inferiority complex yan. Okay lang. Pero mas magaling sila sa akin. So, sa bagay, patas lang. Walang sumagot. Bakit? Dapat kung tao sila sasagot sila, dapat gusto pa na sumagot. Walang sumagot. Isa sumagot, undersecretary lang. Sinagot ko, sabi ko, medyo mali na gusto. Hindi na ako kinausap. Yan ang problema ko. Ngayon, kasi hindi ako convergence. Kung ako is convergence, the longest running in the world, and I say, I want to talk to you, alam yan ni Duterte at iba pa, you have to talk to convergence. That's Nina Galang, di ba? That's our moderator, di ba? You have to talk to them. They're not making money, etc. I mean, they're doing it for the country, di ba? Okay. So, sa wakas, ano sasabihin ko? Dalawa lang. Is convergence going to invite us and learn from us? And then what? What will you do with the learning? Will you apply it? More importantly, convergence is very powerful. The longest running in the world, okay? You can use that cloud. How will you use the cloud? You will use media, di ba? You will use connections, etc. In other words, who knows about convergence? Does the person in Marawi know about you? For me, everybody in the country should know about you. You're the biggest and the best in the world. How will you do that? You can have your monthly thing and clap and say goodbye and learn. But you can do more. You can become a power. And I know this because I was a secretary of Ramos. I had the Golden Heart Award. I got one of the top awards, right? Okay. I doubled production of rice with with 1/3 the budget. I know that's why my doctorate is how you get knowledge and make it actually help people. Masipag, what are you gonna do with them now? You're gonna say goodbye? No. I think you'd see what's correct, and it's correct. Then you move and make it happen. And how do you make it happen? You are convergence. You are convergence. You have a track record. And I will help you personally because as you know, I've been a columnist in Inquirer, writing every single week Inquirer for 19 years. And I've done some things there that they're doing, but without Inquirer, they would not do it, okay? But now you're not just a columnist, you are convergence. You're the top people. I'm only one person. You're the top people. And what I want to offer to you is after this, talk to you and find out what are we going to do about Masipag? First of all, we have to find out if Masipag is practical. Because, they told me organic. Tama yon. But you do not know organic in one day. Muna, balanced fertilization, and then organic. Kasi organic one day, the yield drops too fast. You know what I mean? That's why I'm president of agribusiness. Because I do not follow ideology. Sabi ni Inchong, you do not just follow ideology. I like organic. But there are steps to get there. You don't make it sudden. Nobody will follow you. You make it gradual. Di ba ganon? But masinod, galing-galing yan. We first see if their practice is correct, and maybe they're good for the very progressive people, those who don't understand. Maybe there's another way. You find that out. And once we have that, and you've studied, then we have convergence, then we go. I'm offering to you that I'll take you to DAR and maybe the president, because I have a monthly report to the president now. Because when we went to DAR, I said, I'm not saying agriculture so bad, but I don't blame agriculture only. It's also the customs of smuggling. It's also trade policy, ganyan. So Secretary knows that. I tell him everything. I'm trying to help him, right? But if I have convergence, look, who is developing Masipag? I've known this group is a very good group. Bong Chong likes them. Is he helping them? Not really. I mean, he has no power. He's in chicken, for God's sake. The one was the power is the one with 42 billion pesos, and that is agriculture, right? And Dar is a good researcher. Now, they don't like him in terms of management, but in terms of research, I think they like him. I think he'll understand this. So I'd like to end by saying this. Two things today. Number one, let's do something on Masipag. Number two, this one, it's safeguard. This one, we're gonna make it live, right? Because the people continue to suffer. And Duterte, stop importation, hindi mo pwede yun. They didn't give him the alternative. So tinuloy itong walang safeguard. So I want to work with you on those two things. On that note, I'm here today. Number one, I'm honored you invited me. Number two, I'm excited because of the kind of people you speak. And Bong is one of the best guys I know. I don't mind he's getting my time. He's better than me in agriculture. But maybe I'm better than him in connecting to people and influencing, because I'm older than him, mas matanda na ako, right? and you must recall, and in terms of my academic credentials, I was rated the best course in Fordham University and second best New York University. And Asian Institute of Management, there's a course that was the best in AM. So I have academic credentials also. But my passion is not academia. My passion is getting what academia knows and making it happen into jobs. And that's what convergence has. You got the brains, right? And you have the connection. And I don't have your brains, nor do I have your connection. But I can be the bridge to get that and make it happen. And we've succeeded in some cases already on that, okay? So I'm not talking academically. I've been in government 12 years, private sector 20 years. But even private sector, just to let you know, no, the commitment to sustainable development, I did that in 6 countries, right? Cement is the worst product. It pollutes too much. And yet we got the Golden Hall of Fame award across 32. In other words, I don't have brains, not so much. I don't have personality, not so much. But I have concentrated
no more
on one
humble.
thing. All right? No, I don't have it. But I have one thing. God put me here because he put me here. First of all, I'm not killed. My friends were killed because I was not here when they were killing people. No? But I would like to offer that. And I would like to be the bridge from convergence and getting your knowledge and bringing it to action. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ernie. Thank you for offering yourself. Thank you for your passion. Uh, I assure you, Green Convergence shares your passion and your commitment. And I want to say a lot of things, but I will leave it to Nina to answer your exciting challenges. Because if I talk, we will not have time for any more questions because we are 1 hour over time already as it is. So, Carlo, I think we should just dive into the questions. We have no more time.
Okay, just a reminder that for the open forum, you may raise your hands or call our attention on the chat box. And you may also write your questions on the chat box. Right now, we have comments from Sir Rene Pamintuan and a question from Ms. Tessa Oliva. We will take as many questions as we deem our guest speakers can answer within our time limitation.
Okay.
So,
reality check. It is 5:02. We're supposed to end at 5:30. We can extend up to 6 maximum. So
Rene is one of the most influential and brilliant people I know. I wish he were in government.
yeah, okay. So we have really good people here, and it's too bad we're running out of time. So to give time for answering the questions, I think maybe we have time for 3 questions.
Let me start by reading the question of Ms. Tessa Oliva. How do we communicate link with Masipag for marketing farmer produced in the community?
Okay, you don't answer it. The questions will come first, and then the answers will come in part 3. Okay?
Sir Rene Papintuan has comments, and it's quite long. Probably we can give a space later on for Sir Rene to personally share his thoughts. But everybody can, of course, read his comments on the chat box.
Yes, please read his comments in the chat box so that we will save time. Questions? Are there any other questions?
There's another question.
There is a question from Sir Eric.
Okay, let's read. Are you open to share Masipag seeds for urban gardening in Metro Manila? So we have 2 questions now for Sir Ryan. Dr. Galang
has a question.
Yes. Masipag is one of the organizations which is working on organic farming, not only as a technology, but also as a philosophy, a way of life, which is really very important because this whole system goes together. No? The components of the system go together. There are others, Sibat. And what I would like to ask Ryan is, what do they have a network of organic farmers? I think there's one, but I think maybe he can give us more details, because the challenge of Ernie is to broadcast, to publicize, to promulgate, to promote this system. Now, how extensive is organic farming in general, not because there are different kinds, SRI, Masipag, etc., but how extensive is organic farming in the Philippines? That's my question.
Okay, we already have 3 questions. Maybe we have time for one more, and then we will see how much time we have after the questions have been answered. So is there any other question? If there's none, let's just go right ahead and answer the questions.
How about Rene? Won't you have him ask his most important question? Rene, baka walang oras. Sabihin na sa atin yung question ni Rene. Kung 10, anong 2 pinaka-importanteng tanong niya? Kasi baka marang out of time. That guy is brilliant. Nice to hear his question.
I think he had comments more than questions.
Okay.
So the comments you can read in the chat box.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead and answer the questions. Who goes first? Ernie, was there a question for you?
Well, the question is not for me, but it just says that you guys are interested in organic, so am I, and let's work together on that. And I love Masipag, and I want to use you to help them. So you lang. Let him answer the questions. It's all about these seeds and doing it, no? But I think he can do that. But you're happy to become the whole country, and ang gusto ko, napakagaling niya kung pwede kalat natin sa buong bansa, hindi lamang sa...
Okay, yeah. So then all the questions were directed to Masipag. Let's hear you now.
Maraming salamat po sa mga tanong. Doon po sa una, paano ang communities linked with Masipag for marketing and farming produce in the community. Yung pong Masipag, meron po kami sariling sistema na tinatawag namin Masipag Farmers Guarantee System. Tinitiyak po namin na lahat po ng aming produkto o ng mga magsasakang kasapi namin na nagbebenta o gustong magbenta ng kanilang labis na produkto ay sertipikado at organiko. Kaya meron po kami Masipag Farmers Guarantee System. Dumadaan po yan sa isang yugto ng pagpuproseso sa amin internally. No? Ini-inspect po, pini-peer review muna yung kanilang sistema ng pagsasaka kung talagang sumunod sila doon sa Masipag Organic Standard. No? Tapos hanggang doon sa pagbabiyahe ng kanilang mga produkto. No? So, ang ginagawa po ng masipag, locally, nagde-develop siya ng local market. No? Una, among the members. No? Pangalawa, doon sa barangay, sa mga katabing barangay, pinopromote niya rin yung kanyang mga produkto. Nakikipag-tie up, partnership din siya sa mga local government na open, no? Sa ganitong mga gawain at advokasya. No? Lalo na yung ilang mga madaling kausap ng mga organic local person ng bawat municipal agriculture office. No? Sila minsan yung aming mga katuwang. Bukod po doon, nag-organize din po ang mga samahang magsasaka. Yung po kasing masipag ay may tinatawag na Provincial Coordinating Body o PCBs, kung saan nakamember po doon yung mga samahang magsasaka na nag-organiko. Yan po yung nag-organize ng mga local market. Halimbawa po, isa pong expression dyan ay yung Patikim Festival na tinatawag namin. Dito po sa Patikim Festival, ginagawa po namin yan across the Philippines. Ginagather namin yung mga tao na posibleng maging pwedeng pagbentahan ng mga aming mga produkto. Yung aming mga produkto sa kanila. Tapos kalaunan ay binubukas namin para bilhin nila o ibenta namin sa kanila. So, yun. No? Siyempre, bukod doon, sa iba ring mga organization, institution, kahit labas ng mga probinsya, halimbawa Ateneo, may mga ino-organize silang mga parang mga araw kung saan pwedeng magdala ng mga produce yung aming mga magsasaka. Ginagawa rin po namin at pinamaximize namin ang ganong klaseng mga pamamaraan. Tapos, ang masipag din po kasi ang Secretariat ng PGS Pilipinas o yung Participatory Guarantee System na kung saan ay nakasalang po ngayon yung amendment ng Organic Agriculture Act. Ang balita namin as of kahapon o kanina, nasa lamesa na ni Presidente Duterte at pirma na lang hinintay para maamyendahan itong batas nito, na kung saan isa po sa highlight dito ay yung pagdagdag o pag-institutionalize ng PGS bilang certifying body para sa organic agriculture. Ang naging problema po kasi dati, kaya hindi ganoon kalaki o kalakas yung ating organic agriculture sa Pilipinas, ay nahihirapan yung mga magsasaka na gustong mag-organic pero hindi makapagpa-certify dahil napakamahal ng kailangang bayaran sa third-party certification. So, sa naitulak po ng masipag at yung kanyang mga partners and network through PGS, miyendahan na po yung batas natin. No? So, hopefully, makakatulong ito para mas mapabilis at mas mapalawak pa yung ating organic agriculture sa Pilipinas. Ang isa lang pong malungkot, napakaliit ng budget na inilalaan para sa organic agriculture. No? Para hindi ako nagkakamali, ayon sa batas ay 2% ang budget ng DA. Pero in reality, wala pa yatang 1% ang nailalaan ng DA para sa organic agriculture. Siyempre, mas malaki pa rin ang budget para doon sa chemical-based agriculture in terms of allocation ng budget sa DA. Na parang ang budget ng DA ngayon ay lalo yatang lumiit. Yan. Sa tanong po na masipag can share organic seeds sa mga urban, tama po ba? Yes po, basta malinaw kung saan po natin gagamitin, sino ang makikinabang para sa, siyempre, para sa mga maliliit na mga mamamayan. Open naman po ang masipag. Yung nga lang po, Siyempre, ang masipag po talagang nakapagpakahusay na po kami sa usapin ng palay, mga binging palay. No? Ang dinidevelop na po namin ngayon ay yung sa corn at saka yung other vegetable. No? Kaya ang direction po namin ngayong taon hanggang sa susunod na 2 taon ay yung pag-develop ng mga PO-managed seed bank para sa vegetables and rice. Yan. So, nakaganong direction po ang masipag ngayon. Gaano extensive ang agriculture sa Pilipinas? Well, kung tatanungin niyo po, for masipag, currently, nasa more than 500 people's organization ang member namin sa buong Pilipinas, which is as around 35,000 farmers, individual farmers ang membro ng masipag. Kung sa ibang grupo naman, medyo hindi ko po kabisado kung ilan, kung gaano kalaki o gaano kalawak. No? Siguro, hindi ako magkakamaling sabihin na hindi ganoon kalawak, hindi ganoon extensive yung kasalukuyang organic agriculture sa Pilipinas. No? Hopefully, makakatulong yung pag-amyenda ng batas na kung saan ay mababawasan ng yung mahal na certification ay mapapamura at makaka-engganyo pang lalo sa mga magsasaka natin na mag-organic na pagsasaka. So, yun po. Nasagot ko po ba yung mga tanong?
Okay. Thank you very much, Ryan. We have some time kasi maiksi lang yung mga sagot. So, Carlo, we can still take in some questions, maybe 2 more.
I'm not so sure if Sir Ryan was able to answer this, but there's a follow-up question here. Do you deliver to any market here in Metro Manila?
Ganito po, yung sistema po ng masipag, sa ngayon, iniiwan namin sa mga farmer organization yung pasya kung paano nila ma-market yung kanilang mga produce. No? Kasi gusto po namin ay ang mamahada ng mga siwa ay yung mga samahang magsasaka na yan o yung provincial coordinating body. May mga karanasan po na may mga surplus product ng aming mga magsasaka na dinadala sa Manila, dinideliver. No? May mga umu-order. Ang ginagawa namin, yung mga magkakalapit na mga samahang magsasaka na may mga surplus at makakatugon doon sa volume na inihingi ng nasa Manila o nasa saan mang lugar, ay pinagsasama namin para ma-deliver doon. Bukas din naman po ang aming mga samahang magsasaka na magbenta sa Maynila o saan mang lugar.
Okay. I think we should listen now to Rene Pamintuan. Following Ernie's advice. Marami siyang sinulat dito sa ating chat box. Rene, do you want to speak?
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon po sa inyo.
Let's hear from you.
Yes, ma'am. Isa ko pong masasabi, 70 years na of independence, there are 2 types of farming and agriculture in the Philippines. Yung isa, yung small farmers. Yung pang-rate farming na ginagawa. Ang tanong natin sa sarili natin, bakit successful nag-export at gumagawa ng huge volumes yung multinational as compared against the small farmers? I think the answer to that is this. Yung multinationals as an industry, in fact, parang industrial farming yung kompleto sila, may marketing sila, may value chain, may supply chain. Ang small farmer don't have that. unfortunately does not see it as it is really needed. Hindi naman nila sinasagot lahat ng pangangailangan ng mga farmers. So, marketing problem, supply chain is an issue, is not there, and consequently, the farmers 20 years remains to be poor. Nagbibilad pa rin sila ng grilada, nag-aararo pa rin sila gamit ang maliliit na kalabaw, and they remain to be small farmers. Samantala, sana matututo tayo sa ginagawa ng multinationals, gawin yung best practices concept para i-apply sa small farmers. That would include consolidation of value chain, provision of supply chain. Lahat yan wala. And if you look at all the programs na ginagawa ng DA, hindi nila sinasagot yung issue na yan. Kaya kung gano'n ang mangyayari, hindi natin ititreat yung small farming as an industry. Today, it's not an industry. It's just a livelihood. They just consider it as livelihood. Diba? It's either an individual livelihood or a family livelihood, but it is not considered as to be considered an industry. Lahat ng factors of success, like what I said, no, value chain, supply chain, market linkage, even consolidation, lahat yan dapat i-apply ng isang gobyerno in favor of these small farmers so that they will up to become an industry. Ginagawa po yan sa Vietnam, nagawa sila. Hindi na nakatingin lang tayo sa multinational companies who are doing perfectly what is needed, what is supposed to be done, but we are not getting the best practices and applying it to our own farmers. Consequently, after 70 years, we are worse off than we were. So yan po yung nakikita ko. Sinama ko dyan sa chat box natin, sinamarize ko na lang lahat because I think that is really the main issue. That is really the main problem. When a government does not see the individual and the family working together with all other individuals and families and creating an industry out of it, hindi nga siya industry, livelihood lang siya. It is a small piece and it will never become a big part of the whole kabudo. So sayang naman. So yan po yung nakikita kong problema natin. And unless our government realizes that there must be a focus on market linkage, value chain, supply chain, yung mga farmers na to be throwing away their tomatoes, they will be throwing away they will be throwing away their squash continuously because the answers that are being given government do not really provide solutions. Mali ang approach, hindi na solve yung institutional problem. So paulit-ulit na lang, hindi pa rin natin masosolve.
Okay, thank you very much. Maraming salamat. Marami pa tayong dapat pag-usapan, marami pang dapat sabihin. Pero
I would like to say 1 minute before you close. Before you close, 1 minute. Before you close.
Okay. We are...
No, at the end. I'm at the end. 1 minute before you close.
Okay, then you will talk before Nina does because she always has the last word.
Yeah.
So now we are approaching the end of our episode 364. So, Carlo, you have any last minute bilins? Or
You requested me to present a recap of
yes,
today's learning session. So here's my attempt.
May I say something?
Okay, sure.
Yeah. I want to make a comment which might take long for it to be a closing remarks, no? Ernie, you have the Alianza Agricultura. Are these big businesses lang, big agribusiness? Because you threw the challenge at Green Convergence, okay? And well, thank you for your faith, but yeah, for now we're really an awareness raising coalition. But we have been thinking of how we can go beyond that. But in this particular context, you have the Alianza Agricultura, which is big. If you connect with the organic farmers, which are small farmers, won't that be synergistic, and won't that promote the organic way very fast?
Okay, let me answer that so that I don't need to speak anymore before we end. First of all, I am the coordinator of 5 coalitions. One coalition is all rich people. It's called the Philippine Agriculture of Fisheries. No, we have if you buy chooks to go, there are members. We also have the masipag types, right? We have many organic. As a matter of fact, my majority are organic already. You know, because Alianza Agricultura is the small farmer, mass-based. They're the ones who march from Davao to get the coconut levy. They're the ones who do hunger strikes. They're the ones who fight. The ones you saw fighting, no? These are the magsasaka mangisda. They're the small ones. I have the big ones. That's another one. I'm the coordinator of 5 coalitions. The second one is big. The third one is PCCI. That's big too. We're all one, all right? But why not moving? We need convergence. You know why we need you? You have a different personality. You're a new kid on the block. You have no vested interest. You have a fantastic advantage. Now, if I want, now Pamintuan is, of course, is correct, right? As a matter of fact, from an objective point of view, his move will do more for agriculture than Masipag, correct? But that's harder to achieve because that changes a lot of things. And I would not use you because what do you know about this, right? But you do know environment. And this agriculture, pesticides and all this stuff, you know that. You know that more than Pamintuan. Pamintuan most know about marketing than you, but you know more about Pamintuan. And Pamintuan is already an old face. Kilala na yan. Gusto ko new kid on the block. Convergence, environment, not just, you know, for environment's sake, but, you know, if you kill the soil, you will not grow food anymore. They don't understand that very well, you see. So I'm just telling you this now. I'm an operator. As I said, I don't have brains, but I do have a sense of what works, right? I'm an operator. And you will not be useful to the fight of Pamintuan because others can do that better than you. All right, but we haven't found it yet. But Pamintuan is one of the most brilliant people I know. Pero wala pa yung connection. We're trying that. We're trying that right now. No? We're working on that. But convergence is gonna do something which Pamintuan cannot do, which PCCI cannot do, which MAP does not do. Hindi ba, you know, Management Association of Philippines, you know what that is, right?
Yeah.
That's Henry C. That's Gokong Wei. That's the big boys, right? Okay. Oh, I'm in touch with them, of course, right? But can you imagine Tessie C. Coson going to them and say, "Can you help Masipag?" I mean, I say, "Who are you? You're a shopping lady, kiddo. You're a shopping center." Pero convergence, I'm Nina Galang, Vice President, head of the longest running work in the whole country. And I don't come here just as I heard Masipag today. You have to look at it. You have to study it. You're very responsible, you and Carlo and the rest, no? You look at it, and then you write a 3-page paper, not 100 pages. And you look at it. And if you believe it, only if you believe it, then we move, all right? I will not move unless you move, right? And if you don't want to move, I'm not going to move. But if you move, you don't have the connections I do, di ba? So I will be your servant in the connecting. But I will not do it unless you look at Masipag yourself. Because, you know, I've seen some of these organic people. They want organic, you know. They'll never get anywhere because they won't go organic. They'll lose too much money. It's a balance. And Masipag knows that. Magaling to Masipag because I just want to let you know, no? 335,000, it's impressive, isn't it? That's less than 1% of our farmers. If the government gets behind that, this 1% will balloon to maybe 30%. Look at the Green Revolution. You think that could have been done with a small group? Of course not. The government says, I'm going to do it, they do it. We need a change in this management of this country. They might panty terrible. No, I love our government. I'm just saying that we cannot go on like this, you know. We cannot go on, we got to move it. And once you move it, are people who are unique, who are new, who are expert, who have no vested interest, and that is you. I mean, who knows environment? Give me a name of a group. Then I will not talk to you if there's a better group. There's another group I know, and you have a unique advantage. You see, I'm an operator. Operators, we know what works, what doesn't work. My gut feel is that your group is going to be powerful. Okay? So I just want to say that. Hindi na ako sasalita. Sinasabi ko lang po, hindi lamang umitiwala sa inyo, hindi ko lang kayo mahal. Ang mahal, hindi masyadong importante sa akin ang mahal. Ang importante sa akin yung galing. And, you know, some people say, I would rather have a corrupt, good person than an honest, incompetent one, because the corrupt guy will waste 10%. We are incompetent. You know, we are incompetent. We are incompetent. I can prove that to you. We are incompetent. But we need your competence to come in. But in fairness, I don't want to call for resignations and all that. I want to say that we have to help each other. If they're incompetent, we must not say they're no good. They're better than us in something. We must help them, and together as a nation we should move. And convergence, I think, is a new kid on the block that can be very, very influential. And I know because I'm an operator.
Okay, thank you, Ernie. Nina, did he answer your question?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so now we move on to Carlos' recap. Carlo.
Okay. Attorney In Chong said this: food security exists when all people at all times have physical and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food. It's quite long, I'll just cut it. And in this context, he said that we have been in a bad place in terms of food security long before the pandemic. He elaborated his point using the four pillars of availability, access, utilization, and stability. He said Filipinos are food insecure because food trade policy has been anchored on import liberalization. Thus, only the traders or importers gain from the policy. Filipinos are food insecure because of our food and agricultural system. And I just would like to mention two, because it favors big players and it does not consider food as national security concern. Filipinos are food insecure because of the administration's denial of realities on the ground. As a way forward, he mentioned three, but I'll just mention one. Pursue a regenerative agricultural system. Sir Ryan Damaso traced the history of food security from the time Erie was born and Masagana 99 was implemented. He cited the effects of Green Revolution, which include genetic erosion, reduced biodiversity, etc. He also cited the social impact of Green Revolution, which include exclusion of farmers in the technology development cycle, and the high cost of production, which is beyond the capacity of farmers. He shared the vision of Masipag, which is to improve quality of life through food security and farmers' empowerment, and how this organization operationalized its programs, highlighting its trial farm. Dr. Ordonez asked this question: should we just say thank you to Masipag and then goodbye? He said government's money should support initiatives such as those of Masipag. He talked about rice security in the context of the past and the present. He discussed the past, mentioning government monopoly vis-a-vis commitment given to World Trade Organization, and the present, highlighting rice tariffication law and other issues, including family poverty threshold. He proposed a solution, that is to follow international practice of a safeguard duty, that is to calculate effective tariff and at the same time provide necessary agriculture support services. I hope I was able to give justice to the insightful presentations of our three speakers. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Carlo. I couldn't have done better than that.
Well, Nina should have the last word, but I'm like a woman because I try very hard and women are better than men. But I want to say this, no. First of all, no, I think if you put your name behind the concept of Ms. Pamito and say it makes sense, that will help. If you put your name behind my idea of safeguard, that will help. But you put your name behind the Masipag organic, that is your strength. And while we're at it, World Food Day, talk about hunger. Listening today is a guy who predicted this hunger. His name is Boy Mantelebino. You remember this, Walang Iwanan Alliance. Look it up tonight before you go to sleep, before your evening prayers. Walangiwananalliance.com. Look at it. Because, hunger has become 31%. You talked about this, right? Hunger was 10% in December. He predicted it will go up. It's 31%. He sounded the call, and Tessie C. Cosson called up, and he said, you know what I like about you? You're not going to get the money to be corrupt. You'll actually be a platform, no? And we're getting Brother Ramon, Luis. We got a big voice. But I want convergence to be on that bandwagon. Anyway, please do that. Ramon, walang iwanan, because 31% is grinding. And the cabinet, incidentally, I'm in touch with the cabinet, and they say, we will hold this hunger, we'll give more transportation. You know what? We got to give them freaking food. They have no food, okay? They have no food. And it goes to 31%, you might have a real problem. And so I'd like you, my appeal is, please, walang iwanan alliance.com, look at it and help there. Because I think you can help in my standards, yeah, in my safeguard, you have in point one, but your best help is the masipag environment. But you can also help in walang iwanan. Imagine if Convergence, the oldest group in the whole world, says, we want to help hunger, and it can be a few pesos. We can do it through PayPal, GCash, Globe Rewards, yeah? Hindi lang malaki kami, but even the malaki is going with us, right? Okay, okay, thank you.
Okay, Ernie, thank you so much.
Excited ako
Okay.
eh. Galing nyo eh.
I don't have time anymore for my parting shot. So,
Go ahead. You want to do the parting shot?
What?
Go ahead if you want to do the parting
Yeah,
shot.
I will just say something. I think the value of our awareness raising, like these forum, Kamayan forum that we have, is that we call attention to things that matter. Kasi madaling makalimutan ng mga bagay-bagay. You know, sinasabi nga like, if you have a baby and you don't pay attention to it, you don't cuddle it, hindi siya nahahaplos, the baby will die. So, listening to all this this afternoon, yung farmers, yung farming, pumasok sa puso ko. So I think that's something, because when we pay attention to something, when we pag pinapahalagahan natin, it gives life to that something. It makes it thrive and gives it energy. So I think just by holding the thought of farmers in our consciousness, we are already primed to do little things for them, like buying, from them instead of imported goods, and other little things like supporting their campaigns, and all those little things coming together in convergence will be a big thing. So I think that's the value of looking at something and putting it in our consciousness. So thank you very much to our speakers. I tried to be very fast, to Ryan and to Ernie. Don't forget, our next Kamayan is on November 20th. Carla, do you have anything to say before we pass the mic on to
No more. I just would like to say thank you to the three speakers and to the participants today.
Okay, and now for the last word, we have the president of Green Convergence, Dr. Oh, before that, please don't leave after Nina's talk. We are going to have souvenir screenshots. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you. And now I present Dr. Nina Galang, president of Green Convergence.
Okay. Well, of course, it's been a very, very fruitful session. Starting with a colorful, bombastic, but factful presentation of Attorney Inchong. The interesting presentation of Ryan, which gives us on the ground look at what's happening to our farmers. And of course, Ernie's holistic presentation, holistic because he knows trade, he knows politics, he knows personalities behind the scenes and agriculture. But the challenge is so big, really.
Right.
We're supposed to be a rich country, but there are so many hungry. We're supposed to have many intelligent people, but we have so many hungry people. Organic agriculture farmers are not spending much on inputs and seeds, but organic food in the city anyway is expensive. And our farmers, our citizens should have more healthy organic food. So what is the solution? Where are the gaps? These questions have been asked over and over in many organic conferences and agricultural conferences. I don't know, maybe Ernie's challenge that we, get together, band together more, their organizations, the small farmers organizations, the NGOs, POs, maybe something will click. Maybe Ernie's connections can help there because the gaps, he might fill in the gaps as far as connections are concerned. So I'm sure our participants also have their own thoughts and insights. We will see what we can do. We're going to have a core planning soon. With maybe we will take up this challenge of Ernie and see how we can act on it. But everyone, please, if you have thoughts on this, we will have a part 2, food sustainability in the micro scale for next month. So I hope that our audience will come again. Ernie, Diane, please come also. So we have a wider range, or we have a wider perspective from the macro to today to the micro next month. So thank you all for coming. Thank you, Ryan, Ernie, Carlo, Marie, Board of Trustees. I know you're here. Our members, our allies. Thank you very much for coming. Let's all work for our country. God bless.
Thank you and congratulations. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you po.
screenshot time.
Okay po. For everyone who wants to be part of the group picture, just turn on your web cameras. Thank you. Okay po, I'll be taking the picture now. First batch po. 1, 2, 3. Okay, next po. 1, 2, 3. Okay po, thank you.
Thank you, Shafi.
Thank you, Shafi.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mabel, and Anna, and Shirley, our staff.
Here.
Bye.
Dr. G.
Yes.
Yeah, I think this one goes well with the consultation that we're going to do.
Yes, correct. Correct.
Yeah.
So,
So, okay.
you'll hear from us again, Ernie and Ryan.
Good to see you, Ernie. It's been a long time.
Thank you. Thank you. We're still young, okay? We're still young.
Very, very.
Salamat po, Doc Nina. Salamat po sa lahat.
Thank you, Ernie.
Regards to everyone in Masipag.
Ako magde-date na ako
Hi,
kay
Kai.
Nina
I didn't see
next
you.
Thursday. I'll make a date with her next Thursday. Zoom meeting. Next
Okay.
Thursday. Basta, put in your calendar. 2:00 next Thursday. I want to talk to you. I'll call you up. 2:00 next Thursday. Just you and me, or you and someone and me. But I want to talk to you. Thursday, 2:00. I will Zoom so that we see each other's remarks and faces. 2:00 next Thursday. Okay, thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Take care.
Hey,
Thank
bye-bye.
you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Carlo.
Basta. Wala na yata.